3 on the side, maybe a little bit longer. So.
Recording in progress.
I'm on the wrong side.
I'll move over there. It does feel a little unbalanced. Otherwise, I'm just staring at the screen.
Sweet head.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
I
you're
gotta
such a
balance
team
it out.
player. Such a
You guys are
team
like
guy.
way heavy on this side of the table too.
Who wants to sit next to me?
I just came in.
He was sitting next to you.
He was.
I wanted to move.
Yeah. It's all right. I can take a hint.
Nobody wants to, he doesn't want to be on
This is
camera.
luxurious.
Put it out.
Miller just wanted to sit by me. That's what she said when we walked in.
All right, let's get started. I'd like to call to order the Town Superior Town Council work session for Monday, December 1st, 2025. Jen's not here yet, but she's going to be late, so I was thinking she wanted to be here for the discussion on the Sagamore subdivision plan development. So why don't we move the discussion of the Town Council 2026 priorities up, and then she can kind of chime in when she gets here. So I sent an email around to all of you individually, just with kind of the list of priorities that I had in the state of Superior. And then some of you gave me some comments. Otherwise, we can just kind of talk through what we want to prioritize for 2026. So I'll just go first with the items that I've identified. They're similar to the ones from this year. So there's 4 of them: infrastructure, economic development, RMMA, and then Marshall Fire Recovery. On infrastructure, basically it's see the investment of the sales tax bond proceeds through completion of Rock Creek Parkway from Indiana to 88th, Honey Creek to Colton, Indiana Street from Torrey's to McCaslin, both North and South Pool, and then Community Park Playground. So no surprises there, but just want to make sure that we're all rowing in the same direction on making sure that the voters get what they gave us bond proceeds to pay for. On economic development, a lot of these items are also, they're not necessarily things that are going to require us to affirmatively do things. We've already done things, but want us to just keep them top of mind. So construction of Volta Flatirons is underway, but obviously we want to see that continue. Kite Route Crossing, hoping to see that break ground in 2026. Hopefully we're going to see Bigsby's Folly break ground in 2026. We want to focus on additional Main Street leases. We're going to be seeing an FDP for a food hall, hopefully.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I don't know if it's been submitted or anything.
Not yet. It was supposed to submit last week.
Okay. So we'll be considering an FDP for a food hall in first quarter.
Yeah, first quarter.
And then hopefully we break ground on blocks 2 and 5 in downtown. And then finally just a big open-ended one for just Sundance Film Festival, because that's going to have a big economic impact. On item number 3, which is this RMMA, we've got the litigation. We're going to see it through on the appeal, but just continuing to represent our residents' interests with respect to the airport and continuing to fight for them to the extent that we can. And then just on Marshall Fire Recovery, we're at 75% rebuilt, 85% if you factor in those who are permitted or have permits pending. And just want to continue to keep our eye on the ball with prioritizing getting everybody back home that wants to get back home. So those are my priorities. If anybody wants to kind of chime in with thoughts, comments, suggestions, changes.
From my perspective, those are kind of in alignment with what I was thinking at the macro level and even specifics. So and it's pretty consistent with what we had outlined for 2025. Following through on what we said we were going to do.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm on board with all of them. I do just want to also recognize, especially when it comes to all the projects, just staff's involvement in that and making all of that a reality. So thank you all of staff for everything you guys have done to make sure that these things happen.
Yep, absolutely.
And that dovetails into a few things that I sent. Mark was just making sure we manage the expectations of our staff and being obviously supportive in their capacity, including events, projects, everything going on, and another banner year ahead. Also would love to make sure our employee survey process continues on an annual basis, and how do we address the questions and opportunities that arose from that this year that I thought was a great opportunity for, and even if it was decided it needs to happen every 2 years or whatever the process is. And then my two top ones were obviously election year this year, so be ready to support the staff and make sure we're communicating to the best of our ability. And then maybe my new number one, thanks to Matt, was continue to support the coalition to obtain our own zip code.
Yep. Do you have anything else, Jason?
Senior housing market rate, not affordable housing. We definitely need to start looking at transitioning the existing residents who are aging out of the homes, but we've talked about that, and I think we do have some opportunities coming online in 26, so I'm definitely wanting to investigate those opportunities. But everything else, Mark, I will agree with you, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Nothing to add. No, I like it already.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Just from a bucketing standpoint, would we want to bucket senior housing under economic development? Or is that more of a standalone?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. That's a good question. I don't know yet.
Okay. All right, well, we will put a pin in that for now, and then when Jen gets here, just kind of give her a recap, and that went faster than I thought it was going to go. All right.
She did say she was on her way like 4 minutes.
Okay.
And that one traffic light slows her down.
I was hoping to get the Sagamore PD issue discussed. Renee's husband's birthday's tonight, so I was hoping
yeah.
around here. So.
That's good.
Let's,
But we can wait till Jen gets here. So.
we could start it.
Let's get started.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll fill her in.
Renee, you want to come up and just give an overview of the topic and
Sure. Okay,
Yes.
see
Yes, you do.
direction
right at
from
the end
council?
now. Well, I don't know how, I assume that everyone has kind of followed a little bit of like Matt Morris lives at 335 and owns 339 Cherokee in Sagamore. When we, I guess to go back a little bit, after the Marshall Fire, we amended the Sagamore PD, and as part of that amendment, we created a maximum lot size because the idea at the time was that we didn't want folks to combine lots and build a giant home, and that like people really wanted to kind of keep the community the way that it was before as much as possible. So we, most of the changes that we made to the PD were trying to keep in mind like consistency with what existed before, and making sure that people would be able to build back if they were underwater on their loans and things like that.
And what we
Uninsured, thank you.
had prior to that, because it was a planned development built by KB back in the
Late 90s.
late 90s. So they built all the homes on individual lots. There weren't restrictions necessarily to prevent people from combining lots,
Correct.
but there were the elevations, which we then relaxed.
Mhm.
So even though there wasn't that lot line restriction, there was another restriction in the PD that would have prevented that from happening. But we gave the flexibility so people could build back a house that didn't look exactly like what KB designed back in the 90s.
Right. Yeah, so we had to create some, restrictions on, and we had like discussions on whether or not we wanted garages, or, there should be windows, or we should allow, rooftop decks and things like that. We went through lots and lots and lots of community engagement and met with you all many, many times through that process. So here we are today with a property owner who owns a home. He's built his primary residence, and he owns a lot next door immediately adjacent. And the way the PD is written is that you have to have a primary structure before you can have an accessory structure, because you don't want someone to just build a shed on a lot and, keep stuff there and not live there. So the idea behind requiring a primary structure is that, you have to have some residence on the property before you can have accessory uses on the property. So that's kind of the impetus for why he wants to either combine lots or allow accessory uses on a secondary lot. We went through all kinds of iterations with him and staff and the town attorney. And really the only way forward, according to the attorneys, is through the town initiating a PD amendment to remove the maximum lot size or change the maximum lot size, like increase it.
And,
So you can't do it through a variance?
No, because it's a self-imposed hardship, so it doesn't qualify for variance.
and the town was the applicant after the Marshall Fire. One property owner can't be an applicant for a PD amendment because we could have thousands of people wanting to do PD amendments for their own personal needs. So the only way to do it was if the town's the applicant.
Correct, yeah.
Could you petition for a PD amendment, like if you got signatures of?
You'd have to have a signature of every property owner, because so usually like in Rock Creek, there's an HOA management company, and the management company acts on behalf of residents, so you need a certain number of residents to sign on to change things. In Sagamore, they don't have that, so they would need all of the residents to sign a petition to bring forth a PD amendment. That's what the town attorney said.
Has there been any other example in the past where a resident has made this type of request?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, people want to do different things a lot of times. Usually they ask to go through a variance process, and typically we try to avoid variances because there's specific criteria that you're supposed to meet in order to apply for a variance. And most of the time it doesn't, a lot of those circumstances just don't meet the criteria for a variance, and there's not really another mechanism other than changing your zoning. So, and you can't spot zone, so you can't change one lot in a greater neighborhood to be zoned differently than all of the lots around it.
And for other PDs around town, what's the process for doing an amendment? Isn't there some sort of public outreach and community meetings and input sessions and excuse me, things like that where we get feedback from the community on whether or not this is something that the community is interested in? And have we or the applicant done anything like that at this point?
So usually PD amendments are not brought on by a single property owner. They're brought on by like a developer wishing to develop a larger property within, like in Rock Creek, Zaharias is part of Rock Creek, and someone can bring a PD amendment to rezone that large developable property. Even though it's part of the Rock Creek PD, they do a PD amendment. But this is a different scenario. You as an individual property owner in Rock Creek can't bring a PD amendment to rezone your house to allow something different.
Unless I got the HOA to get enough signatures.
Correct. Which I'm not sure what the threshold on that is. But
So it'd be helpful to step back for just 1 minute, because I'm not sure that everybody has the same frame of reference, right? Like, so we went through a bunch of stuff in April of 2021, 22, to amend the PD, to allow people to rebuild. Matt, he was rebuilding quickly. Hell, Matt is the reason why Sagamore looks the way that he does, right? He organized the builders and the RFP and everything else. He came to the board, the staff at the time, and said, I want to buy the lot next to me, can I buy it? And, kind of like when we had the discussion with the fence, it was like, do everything, board told staff, like, do everything to make everybody come back. So he decided to buy that. Because at the time it was like, yeah, I'm not going to build a house there. I might want to put a pergola up. And everyone's like, yeah, sure, no big deal. And then fast forward, you can't even put a pergola up unless you have a house on that structure.
The first time he came to us, he asked if he could build an ADU.
Mhm.
And we told him that it could be an ADU as long as it met the requirements of building a home on the lot. So it would have to have like a single car garage and a certain amount of windows. That he could build an ADU because it would, for all intents and purposes, be a single family structure. So he did consider that as at one point. It was a long time ago.
Yeah. But it was an iterative process, right? Because
Right.
he never planned on building another house there. But it was more of like, hey, this lot came open, I knew the neighbor, they're not rebuilding.
I think he also met with Stephen to see if he could build a garage,
Yep.
like a detached garage.
Right. There was a lot of back
There
and
was
forth.
lots of
Yeah.
different ideas.
Is there a sense, kind of to Mike's point, from that community on whether or not they would be supportive of this? Or, because kind of to the staff memo, it could change the character of the neighborhood, so I'm curious how
So-
others feel about that.
He for sure has neighbors who support him and think that that adds to the neighborhood. He has a neighbor across the way who's specifically, I know of one,
Just one.
but she's the immediate neighbor across the street that like has specifically objected to the use of the property the way that he proposes to use it. I don't know of others. I know of one, and I know he has supporters. His use of it is seemingly perfectly fine. But the concern is the allowance of other people to do the same thing and whether or not, and what happens over time with that.
Yeah, so we're at the situation we're at now, where the question for the council before we bring it forward on an agenda is, do you want to be an applicant to bring forward this PD amendment? I didn't want to just bring forward a PD amendment without you guys first having a discussion in a work session. So
Before we get into that, this is the same block that we've had a lot of fun with another issue, isn't it?
What's that? The same
This
one?
is the same block, Cherokee Street, right?
Yeah, the other home is at the south, at the north.
Yeah, and that is a very large home, and the complaints that we've got from a number of homeowners have been, the house is too big, it blocks out the sun, blocks my view of my house. If we allow him to do this, he essentially can plat 2 lots into 1 lot, right? And now, if he wanted to, he could basically add on to his house and make a massive home onto it, which doesn't scale to the neighborhood. We can't tell him what not to do once he does this.
He'd have to tear down his house.
He wouldn't have to tear down the entire neighborhood, he'd just add onto it. That's really easy to do. And he can take up the entire lot and he can make, beautiful house, good for him if he wants to do that, and if we allow that. But what about all the other people that may have thought, I want to do this and I can't do it because it's not allowed in code? Are they going to come back and say it's unfair? We wanted to do this. I know there's a couple of lots that are, I think, still available, that someone could buy those and say, okay, well, if you're going to allow him to do it, pop these 2 together and I'm going to put an 8,000 square foot house on it with a 3-car garage, and it's not going to scale with the rest of the neighborhood.
But that's the debate we have in the PD discussion. This is just a question as to whether or not we want to have the question.
Yeah, well, I'm just also looking down the line, the amount of issues and headaches we've had with the other house that went up on Cherokee, and it doesn't scale, and it's too big, and that's not one.
But there's no
lot.
public process associated with it.
no, but
What we're talking about here is a question before a public process,
Yes.
not the public process.
Okay, but also keep in mind, what is the philosophy behind it? Why have we had so many arguments about the house that was going on down the street?
Well, as part of that, to alleviate that, could we say as part of what we would be doing, have a maximum square footage for homes and just say
It's already in the code.
period and Sagamore, like not a percentage of the lot, but square footage, and say you can't build bigger than this, so you don't have an 8,000 square foot house? Is that something we could do?
And philosophically, I mean, I'm not comfortable having the town be the applicant for one homeowner. I think the Marshall Fire was an extraordinary, unprecedented circumstance that I think the town absolutely did the right thing to be an applicant, to do whatever it needed to do so that people could rebuild. But in this case, I think the good of the many outweigh the need of the fewer the one. I'm just not comfortable having the town be an applicant on behalf of one resident.
I would just ask everybody to consider that we knew when the fire rebuild started happening that there were going to be these like weird things at the end of it that are still the recovery because we couldn't have planned or expected them, right? And so please keep this in the consideration that this is still doing fire recovery and doing right by the fire survivors that have gotten this far and still have loose ends, like the fence thing we dealt with at the last meeting. So just to consider that like in a normal situation, this would be bizarre, right? But this is one person who has for the last few years been trying to meet all the requirements and waiting and didn't just put up stuff and do whatever he wanted. He's been incredibly patient. And if there's any way to frame this in the lens of protecting the community, how it looks, limit, restrict things, or even have language that's only if you were original owner and lost your home from the fire, can you do this, can you do that, so that other people aren't coming in and buying 2 lots. And like, there's things we can do in the conversation, but just to consider that there is still in the next year or two going to be residual things from the last wrapping up of the fire recovery. And I want to do everything I can to make sure those residents got a fair chance at like getting whatever feels like whole to them. And so if this is just to get us to discussing those restrictions and limiting it and tightening it up so that nothing crazy can happen, I would just like to get there. That's just something to consider. Like you're right. This is like not a normal thing that anybody would ask for. But I know during the initial part of the recovery, it was like whatever we can, move fast, break stuff, and we knew that there were going to be things. And so if there's any way for this to look like a win for, and I look, there's 10 lots that are active for sale. There's about 7 that have been withdrawn or expired over the last few years. They could be built on, I don't know, I'd have to go look and see, but there are a limited amount of situations where this could actually turn into something that would be concerning for residents. And I think through the conversation of restriction, we can ensure that that doesn't happen. So I would just love to see this get to the town. Like normally the town wouldn't do this, but again, keep it in the lane of the fire recovery, because I very much think this is what this is for him still. And like, just consider that part of it.
Speaking as someone who did lose their house in the fire, so I think I've got a little bit more perspective, he's already built his house back on the lot he had. Now he purchased another lot. Now he's asking for differential treatment on that per everything else in that neighborhood. I'm not looking at it as this is a fire recovery action. I am agreeing with Mike on this, that this is going to be a disruptor in that neighborhood. If he wants to buy that lot, he's entitled to buy that lot. If he wants to build another house on that lot, like an ADU, like it's suggested by the planning department, he can do that. The issue I'm having with this is that it just doesn't make sense for us to be weighing in on something when it's clear that you buy the lot, and if you want to buy another lot, build a house on it. Houses go for sale all the time. There's a lot of houses in Old Town that went for sale after the people who lived there originally could not afford to build back, so they sell it. And there's a lot of angst that I'm getting, that I see in that area from people who are coming in, they're buying houses, and it's a sense of, in Ireland we call it a blow-in. When my grandfather came to this country, he went back to Ireland, he was considered not Irish anymore because you don't belong there. And that's kind of the sense that kind of happens. And I don't want to set any differential tone through this whole process by saying because your house burnt down, you're entitled to a different treatment than someone else is.
Just for background, he bought that from his neighbor right after the fire.
Okay.
So he's had it for this whole time, which was a huge win for the person who didn't want to rebuild. And he's been going through this process knowing that he wasn't ever going to build another house on it, that he was trying to protect the space and use it for something like a pergola or just not a major structure. And so I don't feel like he's trying to take advantage of any like situation here or scoop the lot up last week and now wants us to change everything. I don't know if you have the background on.
No, I know, but are you going to be cool when somebody comes along and buys 2 contiguous lots and decides I want to put 8,000 square feet
Oh,
on
we
it?
just mentioned that this would be grandfathered into the people who lost their homes, right? Like the ones that the original owners.
I think the PD would prevent someone from doing that anyway as it
would.
stands. Like they can't do that. I don't, like even if someone bought the 2 lots, I don't know the exact
I don't know if we could grandfather
requirements,
in
but
No, it's
a land use. I mean, so that I fully want to do like everything that we can to help, with the recovery. But when we look at like land use issues, whether we're talking like in Rock Creek or Calmonte, any of the PD planned developments, and anytime we're looking at land use issues, like it's never just about the current person that's in that house, because they could sell the lot, somebody else can buy it, and then they step into the shoes of the person that they bought it from. So there can be the best of intentions from our perspective and from the current owner's perspective, but then once that property changes hands, the intentions go out the window, and then it's just a question of like, what does the land use allow? And I'm not saying that that's necessarily like a bad thing or anything like that, but it's just something for us to think about. Like we can't just like rely on like assuming that it's going to be, Mr. Morris there forever.
But a simpler way, sorry, is, because right now, he can't build a pergola unless a house is built. But if we just remove that restriction, to build a pergola before a house is built, does that solve the problem?
It could, however, it opens the door for someone purchasing the property, any property, and building anything on that property, like a shed. I want to put up a shed and I'm just going to store my stuff on that property, but I live over here and I can do that because it says so.
That's fair. I think, spending $500,000 for
yeah.
6,000 square foot lot to put a shed on it is a colossal waste of money. I'm not saying that people wouldn't do it, but that'd be one of the most expensive sheds in Boulder County.
I don't disagree. I mean, that was one of the options
Sure.
that we brought to the town attorney, and they highly advised us to not go that direction.
Okay.
Basically, yeah.
I mean, the other thing that I want to, so we're always talking about, and we're going to talk about later about, the staff survey, and, it's easy for us to say like, sure, like staff, like get to it, prepare like a PD amendment. That's a ton of work.
Yes, depending on what you want it to include.
But I mean, like just in terms of like
How
public
we go about
hearings
it.
and like,
Yes.
it's got to go to the planning commission. We've got to have notice. We've got to prepare all the plans. So like, it's not just like
No, that's fair.
something
Probably
that's
one community
Yes.
meeting at least.
right. So it's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a lot of our time. It's going to take the planning commission's time. It's going to take the community's time. And if that work's going to get done for us to vote it down, then it's kind of a waste, right? So one I guess variation on our options here. What if we, and I don't know if anybody would be supportive of this, but I think like in general, the idea of, an individual, I'd like to know more about this whole like Rock Creek HOA. Like, I don't think, that's the first time I've heard that the HOA would be involved in like a PD amendment, but like if I wanted to amend the Rock Creek PD and put in a high rise, right? And so like I just submitted that, and then it started the process and it got approved for some reason. Then I put in like a high rise on my current lot, just scraped my house and I put in like a 10-story high rise. Like people would be like, that's crazy. Like that shouldn't be allowed to happen. But if like the entire neighborhood or a good portion of the neighborhood comes together, signs a petition and says like, yeah, this is something that we want the town council to consider, seems like it would be a fair thing for us to consider if there was like a showing of like community buy-in for it. So can we amend our code and basically put in like a signature requirement for a certain percentage of the community, 50%, 75%, something like that, to then start the process. So it's like it's citizen initiated, and then the process starts.
And so that way the town's not the applicant.
Right.
Does it fall under?
Or maybe we are the applicant, but we're
On
like,
behalf of,
on behalf of the citizens who have told us to do it.
Does it fall under any home rule restrictions, or like how they set it up for us to not be able to do something
we're
like
getting home
that?
rule
Or-
experts.
I'd have to go
I was
back.
just looking it up.
I mean, I know there's some things that you guys teed up in there that would
Landmines, but I don't
require.
remember.
A lot of these details we did not include for that reason.
Yeah.
We were trying not
So
to
that just be
dictate
standard.
the
Yeah.
future. how to do it.
Because like, I don't think one person, just in general, like, one person shouldn't be able to change the zoning for a neighborhood.
Which wasn't the intent, right? This was the, after every other option,
Yeah.
like variance and all these other things. And
Yeah.
that's how this, staff.
And also, like, I don't think, just in general, not in this situation, but like, I don't think that the town council should do a favor for a single landowner, right? Because like, that invites like corruption and like possibilities, right? Like, oh, like, I'm friends with the council, so I'm gonna get this rezoned.
Allow the
because I
high
wanna
rises
do
in Rock Creek.
Right, exactly. But if you have like the buy-in from, a certain percentage of the neighborhood, then it seems like we're just being responsive to the electorate.
So, Mark, to your earlier point about the current owner and that individual sells the land to somebody else that maybe has a different vision, is there language that we could include that would keep that restriction? I don't know if that's something that becomes deed restricted. I don't know if that's a question for Nick, but to address the current concern without creating problems for the community or staff or future town councils down the road, are there things that we could do now, covenants or whatever, that would keep it tight as we are intending it to be?
I mean, I don't think we can change any of we can't narrow, at least my understanding is we can't like down zone and like restrict your current rights without it being a taking from the government. Like I can't say to your house, like, you can't have residential there, it needs to be like agricultural land, right? And like, if I did that, like, I would destroy the value of your property, and so I would need to pay you for it as the government. Like, that would be a taking. So I don't think we can impose any restrictions. Certainly, but not without like the property owner, like accepting it.
Again, this isn't going to be the current owner issue or this council issue. This is 10, 15, 20 years down the road thing that the next 3 councils are going to have to deal with when there's a new owner and they have a different vision for the 2 lots, and there's community feedback because they don't like the new owner, or they don't like the design or whatever. And then,
Or any consideration on this single applicant. I don't want to just do it just because it's Matthew Morris bought an extra lot. I want to do this because we're not doing it. Somebody buys 2 lots and decides he wants to join them and he wants to make a big house. That's what we should be looking at rather than any emotional attachment. And if we let him put a pergola on the 1 lot, what's to stop somebody from putting a shed on another lot? And is that an expensive shed? Yeah. But now you've reduced your tax burden to the county. You're not paying that massive amount, so we're losing out on taxes in that route also. So keeping his lot separate and putting a pergola doesn't help the town. So I want to be very cautious about making something that looks like we're doing something because we like a guy. And as far as I know, he is a good guy. I had conversations after the fire, and he's a really good guy. But I want to look at this as if Joe Blow comes in out of nowhere and buys 2 lots. What do we do then? And I think that's how we should frame this argument. Not over someone's a good guy and we should give him a favor. We should do this because what's the best thing for the community as a whole.
Well, I mean, any PD amendment is applicable to all the properties within the PD. So,
Yep.
We need to look at it from the perspective of this is not just a single decision that's affecting 1 parcel. This is a broadly applicable change that affects all the parcels in the PD.
Well, somebody came in on further away on Cherokee, put up a house he wanted to put up, and it started a firestorm. I want to avoid anything where someone comes in and buys 2 lots and puts up an 8,000 square foot house. We get the same thing. Because that wasn't fun.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we're here because staff has tried every other option, right? Like variance and amendments and this, that, and the other thing. This is sort of the only option possible. Matt bought this lot in conversations around, hey, I think I can just do this, when, everything was in flux. We were changing everything. Like as Jen alluded to, that was a very busy summer when we were just looking at everything. No one knew what elevation meant, let alone that it described the house, not actual height of the house. And Matt, jumped at the opportunity to do this, never planned on building there, doesn't plan on building there. And I don't disagree, like, PD amendment is a PD amendment is forever. I don't like that option. And I'm actually really disappointed we don't have an easier way to fix this. That's the part that's incredibly frustrating. Like, this solution is actually not a solution because it's like more work for everybody to get there versus what this should have been something very simple. And it feels like we should be able to go back and find a more simpler solution.
But I think that's kind of like the point of a PD, right? Like, they're meant to be
Restrictive.
constraining
Yeah.
and difficult to change and not flexible because
Yeah.
you have like a single developer that's plotting out
Sure.
a community, and then people can say, yeah, I know what it looks like, and I don't have to worry about my neighbor doing something that is
That wasn't
inconsistent
allowed.
with what's there. So, I mean, that's why I'm curious about this whole idea of like, if we could get, you know, like we have like the ability for citizen referendums, right? Like petitions. So,
Yes, I made a note here to talk to Nick this week about it. We can come back to the council once we have the information.
So just out of curiosity, I mean, because that's the way I look at it is, you know, so for the second lot, if the homeowner built the ADU, then built a pergola, and then tore down that ADU, is it a code compliance issue at that point?
It would be legally non-conforming.
Right, so how do we
And I
enforce
would
it?
think,
But would we
there
go out
would
and
We'd have to
enforce
issue a
that?
demolition.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we'd have to do something to
Right,
get rid of
that's-
something.
right, and the things that we enforce versus don't enforce.
It's like if you're tearing down a house to rebuild a house.
Right.
Like, you couldn't do anything else until another house was built.
You're talking about permanent structures and pergola, right?
He's saying if you built an ADU and.
Like,
before
in
the
order to build a
ADU
pergola, you gotta build the ADU first. So if you built the ADU,
But the ADU is not considered the primary residence.
But it could, I mean, so you could build a primary residence that looked like, that acted as an ADU in Sagamore. Just like, since he owns the lot next door and wanted to build, even if he wanted to build a garage for himself, if he put a one-bedroom apartment on top, then it could be, and had windows, it could meet the requirements of the Sagamore PD. So like, those are, I mean, we've gone through lots of options with him over time, and then we've explored all, as I don't know, at least 6 or 7 different ways of allowing him to do what he wants to do. And this is where we're at, and so that's why I'm here.
If you put up a tent for a party on that lot, would that be a problem?
it's temporary.
It's temporary.
Okay, and if you kept it for 6 months, would that be a problem?
Be code violation.
It depends on how long his temporary use was good for.
What would create a code violation? How long would that be?
Well, if we issue a temporary use permit for 3 months and it's up for 6 months, that's a code violation.
What's the longest temporary permit you can issue?
Usually 6
Perpetual
months.
Usually 6 months, yeah.
Okay.
Just keep erasing the date.
Well, no, I mean, look, I'm not going to offer solutions to this because I see a shortcut out of it, but I don't think it's something that you want to entertain, but there's ways around it. And I'm not going to say what it is.
I want to hear it.
That's okay.
You want to hear it?
Yeah.
Having a non-permanent structure, build this pergola, but have it detachable from the foundation. You can pop it off and take it down. You can put it back up. Now it's not a permanent structure. Now you can keep applying for 6 months, whatever you want.
You know, the problem is 100-mile-an-hour winds in Sagamore.
No, he's an engineer. Didn't he do his own home? He's a structural engineer. He
Yeah,
can't
but
figure that out.
there's a permanent structure with a very deep foundation.
Wow.
I like Mark's idea of a petition because even though I want to help one singular person and his neighbors seem on board except for one, if it's something that affects the entire community, I want the majority of the community's buy-in to say this is something we all want, both as an option for them if they have some of these lots next door to them, or people who might live next door to that may or may not be okay. So that was my biggest question on this agenda item is how does the community over there feel, and not just 1 or 2 neighbors, but how does the community feel?
And we
if the
haven't done
community
neighborhood
wants it.
outreach. I mean,
Yeah, which,
we would have to be
but
bringing
that's
the
why,
PD amendment and doing the community outreach ourselves.
that's why taking that off your plate and saying, if you want to do a petition and you get X amount of a percentage of signatures, then we have that feedback to say, okay, the community wants this.
Yeah.
So let's pursue it rather than having you guys do all this legwork and then you get something the community doesn't actually want.
I think the optics of it also is just, you know, the town being the applicant for a PD amendment, you know, made sense after the fire where we were trying to like make it easier for people to rebuild. removing fence requirements and, you know, the elevation restrictions and things like that. But here, you know, we're being an applicant at the outset, you know, to benefit one individual, but it would be broadly applicable. And it's bizarre, right? So like you could kind of foresee, you know, the room full of residents saying like, why are you doing this, town? And, you know, the answer is going to be, well, one of your neighbors wanted to do this, and this was the only way for us to have that conversation. And so we're having the conversation. But the optics make it look like this is what we want, this is what we're trying to force down their throats, and then all of a sudden, like, they need to, you know, mass themselves in opposition to it to stop it if they wanted to. But yeah, if we can get a petition signed by more than half of the residents, I'd say, like, go ahead and do it.
I'd be curious to see what Nick says about that, because we don't
Yeah, I
have
have
that
no
anywhere
idea.
that says, and I'm
I don't
not
know if we
against
have
it,
to,
I
like,
just,
have another amendment or some policy or code that we adopt that allows
Yeah, we'll
for
find
a
out, yeah.
petition. Yeah, like, there might be more steps in that process, but we can find out.
The concern that I have, I'm not opposed to exploring that idea. I want to make that really clear. I'm concerned that if we don't define what that signature petition process looks like, then anybody that has 2 lots that wants to do a petition process can do whatever they want, and then, well, how come my neighbor got to do that and you guys approved it, but you're not approving this? So I think if we go down this road, we need to provide some guardrails so that any future petitions are done in the same fashion, so that we don't get this finger pointing and
I think that petition would be whether or not we should update the PD amendment to allow combining of lots, not just for one property, but for the whole neighborhood.
right. And I'll just say, I'm not really thrilled at having town staff run that petition. I really think this needs to be put onto s'mores.
That was never
but
my
again,
limit on
if
staff, they should have to.
if we're gonna delegate that to him, then I think we need to be very clear on what that petition looks like, how it's worded, so that there's consistency when the next public petition starts.
Does the square footage requirement
Or is
say the same, or
initiated.
is it double?
I would say it's whatever the square footage max is now, it's that, period. So if you combine your lot, you don't get to
Yeah.
double it.
That's unfair. If someone wants to pick up 2 lots and put a bigger house, now you're talking about a larger, because 40% on, right? If you do a house 40% is open, not built on, you can build a bigger house on that. So we'd have to change.
Theirs
it.
is more than
Percentage of lot
40%, they get 61% because their lots are smaller.
Okay, I mean, you've got a double lot with 61% buildable
Yeah,
area.
so
it's
can't
much
we
larger.
build guardrails around that, like I suggested earlier, where there's a maximum square footage?
I mean, you can make changes to if we're making changes to the PD amendment, we can make other changes to prevent certain things.
Yeah,
So-
like that was my suggestion, is don't have it be a percentage of the lot, have it be, 5,000 square feet, 6,000, like whatever that looks like, there's a max period regardless of how big your lot is. So they don't have some monstrosity in the middle of Sagamore.
Yeah, but this sounds like we're just catering to one individual applicant's wants and needs, not opening it up if somebody wants to buy 2 lots, put a bigger house on it. I mean, I want
But the
to be,
PD would be, you can't build a massive
but
house.
we're
but you
tailoring the
can-
PD around this one individual's needs.
But then the petition would take care of that because it would be the overarching community, the majority of the community saying, we want this to be able to have larger yards or whatever.
And that would be defined in the petition.
Yeah, that would be defined in the petition to say, this is for larger yards or to have an ADU of X amount of square footage, like there
No,
would
no,
be
I
a
get your point.
guardrail.
Yeah, I'm not arguing that. What my problem is, I want to be as laissez-faire. I don't like when government's shoving things down people's throats, like, we're going to change these regulations, we're going to change this, we're going to put these restrictions on you. If we're going to create the opportunity for double lots, why are we not letting people put bigger houses on it?
Because it changes the character. of the
He's already changing the character of the neighborhood by having a double lot. So to me, it's just, I want to be very careful, we're not creating this sense of, the town of Superior is creating something that's fair for some people, but not overall fair if somebody wants to do something with 2 lots rather than just put a pergola on it, or an ADU, or a garage or a shed.
All right, so we'll reach out to the town attorney, see what options we have in terms of the petition options. So there's not direction from council right now saying move forward with it. Let's get some answers.
Okay.
And then we'll reconvene and see what our options are.
We'll discuss at a
Future date.
future work session, not on the dais, correct?
Yeah, I mean, we're not coming forward with a
Sorry.
PD amendment.
Yeah, thank you.
So we'll get some information, get a memo from Nick, and then we can schedule it for a future work session, whether it's the regular one or a special one if it needs to happen sooner.
Okay.
Okay?
Sounds good.
Tell your husband happy birthday.
Thank you, Renee.
All right, we are on to our second item. We talked about our priorities before you got here because we were trying to.
Yeah,
Not-
thank
not
you.
rush through that.
I appreciate it.
It only took 3 minutes.
Yeah, but we went really quickly, so we'll come back to it.
Okay,
and so
I
you
was
can
like,
chime
that
in.
was impressively fast for you
Yeah,
to
it
get
was
through that.
surprising.
I was like,
But let's go
Total
back
consensus, huh?
into
Okay.
the agenda, and then we'll hit the priorities when
Yeah.
it normally falls. Item B is discussion of the 88th Street campus pedestrian safety improvements.
Let's talk about Louisville.
It's all good.
Yeah, I think this item came up after there was a child hit there near Tate Drive. And staff had been starting the discussions before then, so I think as most of you know, 88th Street is partially owned by Superior, and then there's a county portion that goes over US 36. It's not CDOT, it's actually Boulder County, and then Louisville after that, all in north. So obviously this route's very heavily traveled by school-age children. The K-8s over there, they're also in the high school. So we have a lot of children walking, biking. Predominantly on the east side of the road is where most of the children are because there's not sidewalks all the way on the west side of the road. So there's a couple improvements that are being planned. With Red Tail Ridge development, I included a couple images in there. We can put them up on the screen if we need to. But talk about those briefly. First of all, Campus Drive has a lot of improvements planned. Multiple roundabouts, new sidewalks, multi-use pass. I think one side has a 10-foot multi-use pass, the south side has an 8-foot. There's actually going to be a pedestrian underpass underneath Campus Drive near the high school. And the second exhibit I included showed where that path will come down to 88th Street and kind of cut through the Red Tail Ridge development up to the high school. That'll be a hard surface trail. It's shown on the design plans as a soft surface trail, but we had already started conversations with developer and CDOT, and they're going to make that a hard surface trail. And then, unfortunately, there's not many improvements planned on 88th Street itself. The only improvement is increasing the right turn lane storage and replacing that existing sidewalk section near the school, and it'll still be a 5-foot sidewalk, so no multi-use path is planned.
Hey, Brandon, just a question on that. You said it's going to be a soft trail, now it's a hard trail within Red Tail Ridge. But to get to it, you still got to cross Tape Drive.
Yes, you will have to cross Tate Drive at 88th Street. And another item is they don't currently have any planned crossing improvements at Tate Drive. It's going to be a stop controlled intersection, so nothing's planned beyond that currently.
Do we plan on putting a signal at Discovery Parkway, or Promenade and 88th to help with that?
So Promenade 88th, we do have a pedestrian crossing signal there right now. So it's pedestrian activated and it's frequently used. We actually had to change the timing of it because it was backing up 88th Street too far.
But I mean, if you're on Promenade trying to make a left turn in the morning, it's a wait for
So
sure.
right now, there's not a plan to put one there.
Okay.
The traffic study showed one's not needed at this time. I agree with you. I drive that way. But I think
And
I'm
it
not-
probably isn't needed, but once Red Tail Ridge goes in,
Good
we
increase.
probably want to revisit that.
Yeah,
I
there's
think
a
the trigger
Harris,
was Zaharias, right?
Zaharias
Yeah.
development
Yeah.
would trigger that
Okay.
traffic signal need if that is developed. So continue the destruction on 88th Street. So we've been in discussions with the Louisville developer, Community Solutions, looking at different improvements, BBSD, we got a call. So we agree improvements are needed. Tate Drive's been blocked. If you drive that, it's been blocked with concrete barriers now. It was cones, and we pushed back because they were moving the cones and still driving through, so now they have concrete barricades there. City of Louisville has issued a contract to restripe 88, so they're responsible for striping 88 all the way to the town of Superior line. The town's responsible for snow plowing to the City of Louisville line. So we've been doing that. They haven't striped it in years. They have a contract with Colby Striping to get that done. It should be done any day. It's not done yet. I asked them for an update today. They're waiting on Colby Striping. So I would guess that'll be done this month. We were waiting on Colby for several projects too. So You will notice that in the bike lane, they put some dashes down for temporary striping, so they're going to stripe the bike lane. On the east side bike lane, they're going to make that they're going to put a dash down the middle so it can have two directional flow, because currently no one's really using the west side bike lane. That bike lane is 9 foot wide, so it will be narrow at 4.5 foot wide with the dash, but usually we see one-way traffic going to school and one-way traffic coming back. We don't usually see a lot of two-way traffic. And then the other thing we're proposing along that bike lane is flex posts. So I included kind of an exhibit what that could look like. So the way that'll work is we'll purchase them and then we'll split the cost with Louisville and our staff, and Louisville staff will put those in. So that'll give us a temporary buffered bike lane in there. BVSD is going to pursue a Safe Routes to School grant. Obviously, we'd have to help with that. Louisville doesn't have a grant administrator, but we do when she comes back from maternity leave. So we'll partner with them and pursue that in 2026 to make that a more permanent improvement. We haven't put anything together, but that it could include a permanent curb there, so an actual physical barrier for that vehicle and bike traffic to separate that. At that time, we would look at, obviously, other opportunities too to widen that. Maybe we could make the west side bike lane, instead of 9 foot, make that one 5 foot, and make this one a 12-foot bike lane to give you a better two-way directional traffic along that.
Brandon, just a question on that.
Yes.
That sort of dedicated bike lane. I mean, the issue is the same as Cape Drive, but, so the transition points are always going to be a challenge, right? So if you're going to head back into Superior from Campus Drive, you're going to be crossing Campus Drive to get into this dedicated bike lane. Like, what is Louisville's plans for those transition points? Like, we can have this bike lane, but we're going to have the same exact issue at Campus Drive where cars rushing to turn left off of 88th they're trying to get in, and the bike signal is still a mess. Are they making any improvements at the intersection? Or I mean, granted, this is all Louisville, and I've sat in here in joint issue meetings with Louisville City Council, and they said everyone should ride their bikes, because that was the issue before. Now everyone is riding their bikes, and the issues are actually worse. Actually, everyone at this point should just drive because they're safer, the Campus Drive and everything else. But Louisville has never cared about any of this. And you can tell, I mean, your memo basically makes a point. They're spending zero money, not their grant administrator, BVSD dollars, and the Red Tail Ridge developer. Like, at what point is Louisville going to step up and do anything here?
That is a rhetorical question.
It is. It is, but I mean, I'm actually really worried going down the path of helping them solve the problems that they've self-inflicted on themselves.
I don't disagree. I mean, obviously, their residents aren't using this pathway to school. Correct. As Superior residents. So we are kind of hamstrung in that regard. And I brought that point up with Louisville staff. I mean, their goal is for the folks to use this paved bike path to get them to Tate Drive to avoid that Campus Drive intersection. They've admitted Campus Drive intersection. They don't have any planned improvements, and it doesn't work very well as it is currently.
And that's even with the improved turn signals.
Yeah. So they don't have any improvements planned today or in the future at that intersection, unfortunately.
So with this dual direction bike lane, we're going to intensify the issue at Campus Drive as kids try to cross over.
Yeah, I mean, the good news about this path that goes through the property, I think it's...
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm actually thinking about the stripe, just this temporary.
Oh, the temporary.
For me,
yes.
Red Tail Ridge is later, right? I mean, let's be honest. How long have we been talking about Red Tail?
And I think what we see currently is there are bikes and peds that use this frequently already. So we want to make it safer for those kids. So while we're not improving Campus Drive, and Campus Drive is a nightmare once you get to Campus Drive currently. It's a 5-foot sidewalk with no bike lane. So you have bikes and pedestrians using it, and there's been tons of accidents.
And 18-foot buses trying to go down and quickly turn around.
So Campus Drive itself is a nightmare in terms of bike and ped traffic. So this will not improve that intersection or Campus Drive at all.
So I want to be clear that this is a temporary solution.
Yeah.
And all Louisville is doing is hoping for the best for Red Tail Ridge to get developed at some point in the future. Well, if that's the case, I mean, because here's where I'm headed. This could be a great solution that is ultimately going to become a near-term permanent solution, because we're just going to be waiting for BVSD and Red Tail to get developed.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, let's do everything we can to make this super successful, right? Like actual multiple, like way more posts than this. So the cars, because everyone uses it as a turn lane as they get over to Campus Drive, right? And if you have more flex posts, they can't use it as a turn lane. And then the e-motorbikes won't be zipping in and out like like a slalom course, because that's what it looks like to me right now. So I want you to have everything you need to make this successful, because this interim solution is effectively the next 4 years.
Yeah, I do think that Red Tail Ridge, I mean, obviously Red Tail Ridge is under construction. I think in 2026, they'll be doing improvements on Campus Drive. It'll obviously take years to finish those and the trail system. So I think we'll start seeing some of these improvements come to fruition in 2026. Obviously, we have no control over that, but that's just my thoughts, because we're also talking to the developer about possible transit with commuting solutions, transit opportunities with that in downtown Superior and the school and everything. So we're having more discussions. So we're talking to the developer about timing and schedules, but I'm hoping we start seeing some of these improvements come to fruition in 2026. Brandon, how much of the land do we own on the west side of 88? Up to what point? Heading north? We stop right at Promenade. Our ownership of 88 itself or outside of 88?
Within the right of way to the north, or to the west. of 88. So what I'm thinking is rather than deal with this entire intersection, why don't we just build a sidewalk on the west side of 88th and have the kids cross when they get to the school?
We don't, that's Louisville.
I know, but wouldn't that solve the problem? They wouldn't have to deal with that.
So the sidewalk on the west side dies right after the bridge on the
Yeah.
Louisville side. So
The sidewalk ends.
we can't build a sidewalk over there. They have to do that.
How much would it be for Louisville to just
They
continue
don't
that?
want traffic on that side of the road because it would make the Campus Drive.
They don't want
issue
people
worse.
crossing at 88th. They want people crossing where we put our signal in. We put our signal in because of the Campus Drive issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't
Well,
want to.
Couldn't we push the traffic, the vehicular bike traffic up towards the school and they cross where the future abandoned hospital is going to be and they cross that crosswalk to get to the school?
That is the problem intersection.
Well, it's not going to be anymore because that hospital is going to go away. They're building a new one. They're going to abandon that one. So why can't we just utilize that as a crosswalk? I mean, that's out of light.
That light needs to be free flowing for the gazillion cars coming and going.
Yeah, so Louisville, and Neil's right, so Louisville, we talked about, that signal's a problem for them. So they don't want people crossing that road, ideally. So their goal is to limit peds and bikes crossing that way because it messes up the whole timing of the signal.
They want people crossing at the tunnel at Dillon,
Yeah.
the pedestrian tunnel at Dillon,
Yeah.
or somewhere in
Campus
Superior.
Drive.
But they're not doing anything. So what can we do to force your hand to try to do something and we're helping out doing it? What makes the most sense? Because if they're not going to do anything, what options do we have? We can sit here and talk about this, we're blue in the face, but until they come on board and say, yes, we'll work with you, I'm not seeing a solution to this.
Well, I think one option would be, I mean, I think we're probably overdue for a meeting with Louisville in general. So getting together in the same room with them and just say, like, look, your kids, our kids, all go to the same high school. This is a problem. I think that this is great, by the way. This is just much needed improvement, and I'm very happy to see that it's
Yes, it's fantastic.
being made, step in the right direction. So let's capitalize on the attention that's being spent on it right now and just say, this is what's being done right now. Let's talk about what Louisville is willing to do to further protect our kids. I mean, you know, they want to do the right thing here, and you know, I think it's just everybody's got limited time and competing, you know, priorities, and so they just need to have attention on it. And, you know, we could do one of two things. We could invite them to a meeting where we talk about this. We could also send them a letter that just kind of like says, like, hey, this is something that came up during our work session. We're going to be installing these bollards, and we really think that this needs to be something that gets attention in your budget for the next fiscal year.
But the flex post, they're installing the flex post, right?
It would be split, so we'll do half of CDOT's property, they'll do the other half, the rest.
But they're going to go all the way to Campus Drive with the flex posts?
Yeah,
Or they're
they'll
gonna-
stop short, so,
So then you
So
get
you
that
can make a
merge.
right turn.
yeah, so there's additional improvements in 2026, so we are gonna add, like even on our side, there's not a good way to get off the multi-use path that was built onto 88. So we're gonna add a ramp there when we do our concrete project in the spring, add that access point. And they're gonna do the same thing on their side, so when we build these flex posts, they're gonna see where the natural crossing point is, and they're gonna make a concrete path
Okay,
from the bike path to the 5-foot sidewalk,
got it.
albeit 5 foot. We did ask them if we could widen that when they do the Red Tail Ridge, so they're talking to the developer about making that an 8-foot path in that short section where we widen it. But those are improvements we'll make in early 2026 to get people off the road. But the flex post will go all the way up to the right turn lane,
Got it.
pretty much. So it will prevent currently cars back up all the way to the bridge in that bike lane, so it'll stop that.
As part of Red Tail Ridge, they're going to extend Campus Drive out to 96.
I don't know the name of the road, but it'll connect to the
Yeah,
east.
96.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like in 10 years, something like that?
No, hopefully sooner, but
Yeah,
yeah.
5 years?
That's going to solve a huge.
No,
amount of
it really
issues.
will.
That's
I mean,
exactly
because
right.
right now you have a bottleneck,
Yep.
the only way in and out for
Everything.
thousands of people twice a day
Yep.
is one
Signal.
signal.
Yep.
So having that eastern choke point will be really helpful. Okay, well,
We will likely get some complaints from motors because there will be backups at Campus Drive when we put those lights post in because the cars turning into the school will now back up the through traffic. So the through traffic, which a lot of kids go to Sid Taurus, will
Yep.
probably get complaints about that. Just be prepared.
Because they use the bike lane to stack.
Because they stack in that bike lane.
And
now,
it
they
backs
won't
up, like
be
you
able
said, all the way
stack.
up to the
It'll
bridge.
back up,
Yeah.
yeah.
And over the bridge sometimes.
Forward into Louisville.
But I do think it's the right move to make it safer for the.
No, I'm super appreciative because this has been a train wreck. Like, my kids went there every year, it was just a mess. And every year they'd complain, hey, Dad, why can't they build talk to the other city council? Yeah, it's been a mess, and everybody sits in there saying it's a mess, and Louisville has paid zero attention to this, and they've seen it as someone else's problem. Well, it's our kids at risk, and that's the thing that's the most frustrating, is it's literally the superior kids that are at risk, because the Louisville kids have a safe way home. They have a tunnel. We have 2 traffic lights.
well, let's make these improvements and I think let's try to get a meeting scheduled with them so we can kind of talk about a more permanent solution to this problem. My kids are going to be going to Monarch next year, so I'm going to be experiencing what this is all about on a regular basis coming up. So I've experienced it just kind of anecdotally here and there, but I'm about to be living and experiencing it on a daily basis.
Yeah, it's been exasperated because both BSD stopped the bus service to Mudgets Lagoon. So I think there used to be a bus stop on Rock Creek Circle, and there's not anymore.
Emoto.
Emoto, seriously.
All right, thanks, Brandon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we are on to item 1C, which is a review and discussion of the employee survey results.
And Nadine's here, she's going to go over some of the key points in the survey results. We had a great participation, 85% of our employees filled out the survey, so we were happy to get that kind of response. But
Yeah, I was gonna lead with that, it's over. But I did wanna highlight some of the other strengths that came out of the survey, right? We have staff that take pride in their work, are committed to the community, they feel a sense of teamwork and professional collaboration, and they do feel the flexibility and the work-life balance in our culture. So I think those are great things. What we did as a group was kind of came up with some key themes, important or improvement goals, and narrowed it down to 5 key themes to focus on. Communication and transparency, training development and advancement, recognition and appreciation, workload alignment and governance clarity, organizational cohesion and shared values. A lot of wordy themes, but I wanted to use those themes to come up with some actionable items. Did put some potential items together, talked to department heads who then went out with their teams to come back with some actionable items. And what you see before you is 8 of those townwide action items. So we're just looking for some discussion and direction on some hopefully achievable actionable items, focusing on something like a manageable number, so we can do some high impact priorities.
Well, I just want to say thank you for putting the survey together, and I know this is the first one, so I really appreciate that, and great to see that 85% of employees participated. That's fantastic. I think that's a really, really great benchmark to start for all future surveys. One observation that I had in some of the individual feedback is that there's a sentiment that Some staff don't feel like they understand what the council priorities are or what the goals are, and I think that came through in some of the themes. And I was on our town council website, and I noticed that our priorities aren't on here. Just our board goals, which were adopted back in 2024. So I'm wondering if, rather than creating a whole separate teams channel and a bunch of other administrative work for you to create something new, if we could just host the council's priorities on this website, and then that could be just a simple link that Kevin or Matt could send out as part of the update. Try to keep the fix simple.
Yeah, I think we used to have it printed on the wall at one point.
Well, we had our goals.
The goals, but I mean like the priorities for 2026, once we adopt those, if that could just get added to the website and make it really easy for everybody to see what they are.
Yeah, that's a good suggestion.
Yeah, I also echo Mike's sentiment. Thank you, Nadine, for putting this together. And I think this was a good start to get a pulse of staff and kind of understand, where there's room for improvement. I think like the looking at the comments, there's a couple things. Hindsight's always 20/20, and like, you think about it, and you're like, if we asked the right question, and if we asked a different question, would we have gotten a different result? And I think that's always going to be the case with these surveys that we ask. But in terms of like the communication, because looking at the feedback that we received, some of the staff feel like they're not necessarily getting direct communication from council, but then on the flip side of that is that's by design, right? Like in the way that we're supposed to operate is we have communication with the town manager, and then the town manager has direct communications with staff. And that is, I think, the best way to do things. In that way, we're not having, communication channels getting crossed and a misunderstanding because all of a sudden, one council member comes up to a staff member and says, hey, I want you to do X, Y, and Z, when the rest of the council doesn't know about it, or maybe the rest of the council might disagree with it. And it might not be a priority. So,
Yeah, so that
the communication
question
needs to get funneled through.
Yeah, that question would be revised in any future, because you're exactly right.
Right.
How are they supposed to answer that one? That's not the way it's supposed to be set up.
But in terms of, launching regular staff communication updates and acknowledging staff and figuring out ways to kind of spread the word to the community about all the wonderful things that the staff is doing, I think is a great idea. Making sure that, I think the weekly digest that we get as a council are super helpful. I don't have any problem with opening that up. I mean, it's subject to Cora, send that out to staff so everybody understands this is what the board is getting, what the council is getting on a weekly basis. Then everybody's got the same access to the same information, and you're not having to create another document, because that's the other thing, right? If we need additional communication, are we talking about putting together an additional piece of work product that's going to take time and effort?
Right.
So if we can capitalize on something that's already out there, at least it kind of shows how all of the departments are working really hard on a lot of really important things. We've got a lot of important priorities and tasks that we're all working towards. So maybe that's one way to kind of get people aware of what's going on.
It'd be good for the other departments to see what all is going on too, because I think sometimes they feel like they're doing so much and they don't really know if the other ones are doing as much.
It's the all Brandon show sometimes.
Yeah, so I think it would be helpful for them to see.
I do think, I know Nia and Leslie sent that out to our teams. So I think a lot of directors already put that. Weekly digest.
Okay.
Yeah, forward it out to
Great.
Is there, from the, native Spanish speakers, is there stuff, do they get anything in Spanish for them? Is that possible? It's just clear from some of the results that the English is second language. I mean, maybe I'm making assumptions, but I think there are some folks that might, would appreciate getting stuff like that in Spanish, so that they're not excluded and they have all the same information in their native language. But I also don't know what that requires, or to like make that possible. And a bad translation, or somebody trying to, yeah, I don't want it to be like, here, we Google translated it for you. It's not correct, so if that's possible, that's just a hugely inclusive, important thing for the staff. And I know there's a lot of them that speak Spanish. So.
Yeah.
From a recognition standpoint, because I didn't see this and I could have missed it, but is there a way for staff to be able to recognize each other? So not just managers, but I know I've worked in places before where you can send like a kudos to a fellow.
Peers here.
Yeah, because you like, they either help you directly or you see them helping a resident in this case or another staff member and you're like, that was really great, but maybe managers aren't seeing it, but you want to recognize them for that?
We have 2 programs, High Five and a Significant Achievement Award. So I think an update and maybe an enhancement and maybe dusting it off a little bit to revive it. It's been around a long time.
Are people
so maybe
using
an improvement to that.
Is there like some sort of monetary recognition, like a $25 gift card or a $10 gift card or something like that?
The nominating employee can pick an amount.
Great.
It's usually a gift card.
Like you said, it's out there, maybe just not well known. Okay. It's great that you have that.
I have some, oh, sorry, go ahead. Are you sure, because mine might be a little longer. You wanna go first?
No, I was just gonna say, Nadine can ping someone, hey, Kevin, nominate someone to get a gift card, and then all of a sudden, hey, Jen, did you know I got a gift card? Yeah, you don't necessarily have to, push it out there.
We do announce it, so when someone gets nominated, we announce it via email.
Awesome.
Okay. But there could be more.
And I've worked in places too where every time you're nominated, you get your name put in a bucket, and every time you get nominated, that happens. So the more you get nominated, obviously the better chances. And then once a quarter, they'd be drawn for like a $250 cash, it was like called a travel voucher, but really it was just cash. You could travel to the mall and go shopping if you wanted. So, but it was just kind of incentive to try to, keep that top of mind so that people would be like the big winner for the quarter. So if we can do that too, maybe. That's fine. So reading through all the open-ended comments, I feel like there's definitely some opportunity for improvement for us as a council as it comes to staff interaction. So I wrote down some notes and kind of take it or leave it, but some things that I thought might be helpful. First and foremost, and I'm guilty of this too, so I'm going to do a much better job, but if you're going to pull something off consent, it would be great if we could all agree to do that by like noon on Monday at the very latest, but preferably like Friday, so that people aren't having to be here unnecessarily or being blindsided by questions and not feeling prepared. So if that's something, I don't know if the council would agree to that or not, but I think it could be helpful for staff to not feel like, A, they have to attend meetings unnecessarily, or B, be blindsided, or.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I always email staff, say, hey, I'm planning on pulling this, right? But sometimes I'm not in a position to know what I'm pulling until like Monday afternoon, right? I completely agree, like if I could do it Friday, absolutely, but I always email. Brandon's usually the one that gets the majority of planning on pulling this. But I also fired like 16 questions to him, so I don't have to pull it before the meeting.
Yeah. But Shannon's been really good about getting the agenda out early in the week.
Yeah.
So maybe respectfully to her, we do it like we cap it Friday night, so she doesn't have to worry about it for the weekend. I mean, if we get it Wednesday, and we spend an hour looking at it, I get it. Sometimes
I spend a little bit more than an hour looking at the board packet. I don't know about you, but I need a lot more than an hour.
You need more than an hour. Yeah, come on, I'll help you out with that.
Yeah.
Most of it's land use stuff, that's my wheelhouse, but, no, I mean, I think we should be more respectful. She does an amazing job. I mean, and then Monday she has to get dinner for us every Monday, so anything we can do to make it easier on Shannon would be definitely appreciated.
I don't know, that was just one thing that I was
It's a
like,
good
well,
one.
that
It's a
feels
great one.
easy for us to be a little more
Yeah.
respectful.
Good point.
When it comes to kind of our interaction, especially with residents, but just kind of in general, and I've said this before, but I'll say it again, just approaching things with curiosity. So instead of, I know we all want to help the residents, that's why we're here. But instead of jumping in with an easy yes, like, absolutely, I'll take care of that for you, and I'll find out why that didn't happen. And I think as just a rule of thumb, it would be great if we learned more about it, dug in and said, what has been your experience? Why are you frustrated? What have you been told? And then saying, I'm going to talk to staff and find out what happened, and I will circle back with you, rather than like, I can't believe that happened, and I'm gonna, fix that for you, because maybe it's not fixable, and then now you're making promises you can't keep, so now the resident's pissed, staff feels like we're not being supportive. So it's just a rule of thumb, if we're getting approached, because we get a lot of complaints, just approaching that more with a, that's really interesting, please tell me more, let me dig in, get some notes, and then go back to staff and find out. And if the answer is still no, then supporting that, as opposed to, there's a certain amount of pushback if you think something's wrong, but it gets to a point where we need to bring that message and be consistent if the answer is a no. So just maybe being a little more curious, I guess, because I felt like that was in a lot of feedback. And then this was a big one, just being very hyper aware of asks on staff, and just basically what the time is going to take. So, be very respectful of staff's time, and, just in general, be very respectful. If you've got questions, make sure they're not, and I've had curiosities before, and I look back and I'm like, I didn't need to know that. Like, there's certain things that you need to do to, know to do the job, and then there's certain things you're like, I wonder about this. Try to do it on your own, and then if you can't, then go through Matt, obviously, for the questions, rather than going to staff and kind of pulling them away, because we've seen consistently in the feedback that they're going to drop everything for us, and that's not fair to throw a bomb when they're right in the middle of their job. And maybe it's a question that Matt could either easily answer, or maybe something like, we can find out on our own, or we don't necessarily need to know, because it doesn't really have a bearing on anything. So that goes to pet projects, that goes to any sort of diversions, but I would just, and again, this is just me, so staff, council can disagree, but I just feel like being very hyper aware of any asks we have on staff, or shooting out emails, make sure they go through Matt. I just feel like that is a really great best practice, because it seemed very consistent in the open-ended questions that staff already feels overwhelmed, and I know for myself, I would hate to add more to their plate when they're already stretched thin.
I just want to add one thing, because this is really relevant, because we've got an election in, call it 10 months. And there's going to be at least one new board member, because I'm not going to be here. The newbies always have a ton of questions, and that's normal. And we keep going to Matt for 1,000 questions, and as you get to be here for a billion years, you stop asking this many questions. But we can use more, better tools out there today, between AI and Copilot, to get the answers without having to go through all the humans. And that's something we should absolutely be looking at, is just literally put all our stuff, which is already out there, but if I can just ask Copilot, hey, here's a question, I will get an answer and not have to go through Matt or Brian or somebody else. And it just seems like an easy way, when there's a couple new board members a year from now, they're going to go through the same exact thing and ask all these questions, because they want to be prepared for the meetings, as they should be. But you're absolutely right. Staff will drop everything to answer the board members' emails at the detriment of, I've answered the question 16 times. It'd be great to find ways to let the tools that are out there now augment that learning ramp that every new board member is going to have.
Which is why I really appreciate Renee's planning 101 for me, because I know that's not an area that I knew much about prior to getting elected, and she took several hours out of her day to talk to me about planning and code and land use and all that kind of stuff, and put together a really nice slide deck, so that hand that over to the next new elected official and set up that training. So yeah, I love that idea. And I really appreciate the establishment of the council staff request policy, because I think that will streamline and funnel those requests through Matt, and he can delegate it to the right individual, as opposed to me reaching out to random person who wants to say yes but probably doesn't have the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'd be very helpful.
I copy Matt even on personal emails to people he doesn't know. Just include him in everything.
Like he needs more.
I know.
Right. Cool. Copilot filters those.
Yeah, I agree with all your feedback and suggestions, Stephanie. Those are well taken. I like the idea of, responding with curiosity. I think that's a good reminder for all of us. When I was reading the feedback from the staff survey, one of the things that kind of, jumps out at me just in terms of like, who do we work for is like, there is a difference here. Like, we're the representatives of the people that elected us, and we work for them. And so when we've got our residents coming to us with a problem, it is our job to represent them and see what we can do. And maybe they've tried to get information on their own and they've been unsuccessful. Maybe they haven't. Maybe we're the person that they thought of first. And we need to figure out how to balance that, right? Like, we want to obviously be respectful of staff and staff's time, and not create, like, not every problem is worth the same amount of urgency and time. So kind of figuring out how to balance, like, all right, we've got a resident that's upset about something that might be the most important problem in the world, or might be a pretty insignificant problem. They still deserve our attention, staff, and respect. And then, staff, we want to be mindful of their workload and not sending them off on, a little wild goose chase here for something that is going to be really inefficient. So, how to best do that. I mean, my practice is generally to send everything. If I'm going to send something to staff, it's to Matt and that staff member. So, like, there's not going to be a request that goes directly to staff. And then I kind of leave it to staff to say, like, we're aware of it, or that's not a big issue, or we're going to get to it, but we've got XYZ on our plate first that we need to focus on first. And then we can at least go back, because what we don't want to do is, like, have a situation where we're not being responsive to the residents, right? Because that's, like, the thing that's, like, super frustrating and a universal kind of reality of, like, all elected bodies. Is like, we all get an email from somebody, and then you're like, okay, which one of us is responding? Are we all responding? Are some of us responding? Is nobody responding? And, like, how are we going to answer that question? So appreciate the thoughts, and continue to try to build a better mousetrap here to get this job done.
And I think too, kind of to your point, it's when we get complaints or requests, tonight was a great example, is you want to swoop in with a cape and be like, I'll fix this for you, but, as we discuss it, there's ramifications that go beyond just this request, and so just being aware of that, I guess, and not trying to get the easy, like, I will get this fixed for you, because I 100% agree we have to be responsive and get back to them right away. But also knowing that maybe it isn't a yes and there's a good reason, because the yes to this one resident affects the overarching community, and 100% agree that we work for the residents. And I don't know how this is supposed to work, but in my mind, I feel like with staff, we should be working with staff as opposed to staff working for us. So, like, we work for the residents, but the staff works with us, and so we should approach them, or at least in my viewpoint, as like teammates to help the residents. I'm not saying anybody here isn't doing that, but just that came up in feedback too, is sometimes it feels like being a little bossy, and making sure that we're teammates in trying to accomplish the overarching goal of supporting the community and all the residents.
I think to Mark's point, and to your point, this is where it gets difficult, because it's like a dual mandate. Because sometimes the residents will come to us because they're frustrated because they've been trying to communicate with staff and they haven't heard, right? Where we are often very responsive. Staff's got a real job, not necessarily dealing with our emails. And it's like they sent an email to staff, 5 days elapses, they come to us, and it's a question of like, well, how do I help this resident who's got a legit concern, tried to go the legit route, not getting an answer? Hey, Matt, can you solve this? That's where I sometimes don't know what I should be doing because I get the whole email chain. And it's like, yeah, this should have been responded to, within a day of the original email, and it hasn't been.
Yeah.
And that's where, I'm looking for some guidance from you guys, like, how can we make your lives better if the residents coming to us after having gone through staff?
And I think, to your point, Neil, I think there's probably also some expectation setting. So, because some people may expect a full-blown response to their email within a day, as opposed to an acknowledgement, like, we have received your email, it's going to take us a couple of days to dig into this because it's some complex thing. We'll get back to you within a week. I think that is
That actually would solve
I think that is a completely fair response to give, Matt and his team time to go do what they need to do, but at least acknowledging that somebody on the team has received the email, read it, acknowledged it, yep, we're working on it, give us a few days. And then, rightly so, if 2 weeks have gone by and nobody's responded, residents
But establish the SLA and then sort of march to it.
Yep.
I think part of it also though is because, as elected representatives, we obviously get the emails, but we get also the random, you're at Safeway and somebody, comes up to you and, or you're on Facebook and, you're in the middle of some discussion that staff may not be aware of, right? So like we might be aware of like additional kind of community outrage that is real and is out there, but it's being expressed in a forum that like staff doesn't know about. And, kind of navigating how to balance that, like, okay, we've got a real problem here. A lot of people are angry about whatever they're angry about. And then getting that to staff's attention so it can be dealt with in a timely manner, appropriately, is a challenge. And, it's a fluid thing.
Well, that's a good example, because I don't have any social media. I mean, zero. So there's something on social media, I'm not going to know. But you can email me or call me or text me directly, and then I can take it.
I won't see it.
So in terms of direction for staff here, and then also I wanted to just kind of talk about the idea, to Heather's point earlier about having this being a recurring thing, a regular thing that we do. So we're polling our staff. How often should we be doing that? Is this something that we do annually, every other year?
We got a recommendation on that.
Suggestion?
And I think there's a balance of taking, asking for too many surveys. So I mean, a sweet spot might be 2 to 3. So we can start with 2 and
Years?
Is that
Every 2 years.
every 2 years.
2 weeks.
How's
it today?
All right, so let's do it every 2 years, and then in terms of, the specific kind of takeaways from this, do we have clear, I don't think we have clear guidance. I mean, I think there's a clear direction on like the communication should be channeled through Matt to staff, and that focusing on additional recognition. The one thing that we haven't talked about is compensation. And like at the end of the day, like employee surveys are great, but like what people really care about is how much they're getting paid. So we talked about this previously about like doing the survey of all the employees, hiring a consultant to do like a compensation survey.
Yeah, I mean, Nadine and her staff go through an annual survey comparison with other cities, but we can, I think what we had talked about was having a third party come in and conduct that. So that's something we'll be discussing.
Because that to me like will show like recognizing somebody in a memo and sending the weekly digest is nice and all, but giving people a raise when it's what they really need.
Well, I just want to be clear, the council's not going to be setting salaries. That's whatever Matt and his team decide. We approve the overall budget, and if there's an increase in the salary line to accommodate that request, that's fine, but
what I think this third party comparison will let us know if there's a market adjustment that needs to be made.
Absolutely. And from the council perspective, I'd rather be approving like a budget line item rather than like individual.
We don't do the individual decisions on.
I just want to be
beyond-
clear
yeah.
that that's
Yeah,
not
we
the
don't make the
expectation.
hiring and firing decisions beyond the town manager and the town attorney. And we don't make compensation decisions, but we do budget for total compensation. So what we need to understand is like, are we making a 2% adjustment for next year? Are we making a 5% adjustment? Or are we making a 10% adjustment?
And that's going to be.
And is that adequate to respond to what the data shows?
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
So are we going to do that internally, or are we going to hire?
No, I'm planning on bringing in a third party.
Okay.
I'd really like to see, like, creative compensation things we might be missing. Like, I think we talked, well, I shared with you, just people have a ton of sick leave. Is there a potential for transferring some of that into HSA that could be used by, or like, there's all kinds of things out there. And how do we take what we have and for, you know, the least lift from the town, find some creative options for people to take advantage of. I would just like to see that also in whatever the consultant is looking into.
Yeah, like there was an ask in those open-ended questions about, you know, can we get a 529?
Yeah.
Things like that, so like additional benefits. And to your point, like comparing benefits that other municipalities are getting to make sure that we're on par.
I might regret stepping in here. So some of it, I think might be also communication. We have offered 529s. We've had presentations on it. So I think there's a lot that I can still do about communication and transparency. Each year we do an internal salary analysis where I go out and using the same parameters and philosophy that I have for the last 10 years, come up with salary ranges using CML's data. And there's a whole group of us that make sure that that data is up to date and current. So I find value in a third party just to verify. So I'm happy to do that. But I think from an HR perspective, I think I can do a better job communicating both of our compensation and the way we come up with our salary ranges and our benefits package. We have some new software that can show the percentage of compensation that they're receiving in benefits. We have a good benefits package, but sometimes it's not clear on the pay stub and we don't provide an annual summary. So I think some of those things were some things that I'd like to do to help with the communication and transparency, just explaining to staff some of the things we're doing.
That's awesome, thank you.
This is relatable, like when a resident says, I don't know what's going on with the town.
Yeah.
I don't get communication.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And so I understand, like, I'm sure that there has been efforts to express these things and it just, in whatever moment they're not receiving it or however it is, so thank you.
I mean, different formats and different ways to communicate.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good reminder, right? Like, no matter how much we communicate, people get their information in different ways, and that's constantly changing, right? And you know, there's always going to be blind spots, right? There's going to be people that are new to town, or like people that are recently getting active on something, and they haven't been paying attention because they've been too busy at work or with life, or they just weren't interested. So, figuring out if you can figure out how to solve that problem.
Kevin would be very rich.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Surprisingly, it's often the newer folks that know everything because they like log in and it's all there. It's people who have been here for a long time and I've maybe just haven't accessed the electronic stuff. But anyway.
No, that's true with like new employees. Like the new employees are aware of every program because you go through an onboarding.
Yeah.
The ones that have been here for 10 years and things get added on are the ones that miss it, right? Because they're too busy to go to the training and the updates and stuff like that, or they got the email like, I already have this, and they don't. And that's the hard one. Like, every HR person on the planet has the same issue.
All right. Are there any of these suggestions that I think we're on board with all of them. Basically. Nobody has a problem with any of them.
Actually, I think it's a great way to sort of approach the problem. I mean, I think it's laid out really well.
All right, do we need to formalize any of the, I mean, there's the idea of adopting a formal policy on the council request to go through admin.
Yeah, that's something we'll work on and bring back.
Okay. Are there any other formal policies that we need to adopt on our end?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right, well, let's keep this conversation, ongoing and open. So if there are any additional suggestions on how we can keep our staff, happy and productive. All right, thanks, Nadine.
You'll be here for the second.
I was gonna say,
You don't get to leave.
We're not going anywhere.
All right, we're on to item 1D, which is discussion of enhancing security measures at town facilities.
So one of the things Nadine does is facility maintenance on all of our buildings that we have around town. Had some discussions recently with Jason and others, even the judge, on safety improvements to our facilities. We did improvements to the reception area. How many years ago was that? A couple?
Like 4 or 5, right?
Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah. Where we put in bulletproof glass and ballistic proof panels there as an added protection and a panic button, I think. These are panics. And then did some, the secure doors and stuff like that. But this goes a little bit further. We're looking, Nadine put together some information. Sergeant Solomon probably has his ideas as well, that he's here to answer any questions you might have. But before we put a lot of effort into whether moving forward with some of these improvements, we wanted to share this information with you and then get your feedback and direction on what exactly you'd like for us to do on these facilities.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, this is just some general estimates, some numbers. I didn't dig into too deep because I wanted to have the whole council discuss and give some direction to see where we wanted to go, because it really varies on the product, which I don't know a lot about. But we did have a gentleman who helped us with the upgrades a couple years ago, give us an estimate for these windows, and gave me a good understanding of the difference between bullet-resistant glass and glazing. So I guess there's a difference, which I'm sure you can talk to a little bit more. And then the estimate for the ballistic panels on the dies and the desks, to give us kind of a good idea of what just doing those few things would cost.
Really, I'm all for improving safety for town staff and for those of us that are in this room, including the judge. I'm curious to kind of understand our leased spaces and what improvements would be needed, and would those costs be borne solely by the town, or is that something that the landlord would help cover if we get to the point of renewing a lease? Or, if we're maybe talking about doing something different with town hall down the road, do we maybe not do some of those improvements and roll that all into one thing?
As far as the leased space, that would be a discussion we'd have to have with the building owner.
Okay.
And some, I think, some of the tenant finish work, they contributed some funding towards that. Correct on that? Yeah. So it could be some discussion we have with the building owner.
Okay.
Yeah, usually with the landlord, it's a dollar amount per square foot for tenant improvements.
Okay.
When you sign the lease, so it's basically to get the tenant improvements done so that you can move in. I don't know what that would look like from you're already in it.
They'll just let you pay for everything, and then they get to keep it when you leave.
Yeah.
Right, which
You can usually make whatever upgrades you want in their building.
they get the benefit, right?
We did at the Superior Plaza offices put in locked doors that you need code to get into, or somebody let you in.
Right.
And then at the Civic Space, Nadine's in the process of installing some security cameras, because we had budget for that this year. So, and then I think that was it as far as upgrades that we're currently
That's why I was curious if, when we're talking about town office space, what, if any, improvements do we think are needed in leased spaces? And if the answer is none because we have the locked doors, then that's fine. And if we want to focus the improvements on town hall and other town-owned buildings, then let's have that conversation.
So we don't currently have panic buttons at front desks, is that true?
Just at town hall.
But that doesn't go to the police department, correct?
Correct, goes to the alarm company.
Yeah, that's,
The who company?
Alarm company. And then the alarm company then calls the third party, I believe, and then if they can't get a hold of the third party, or the third party then says, call the sheriff.
Is that kind of like a standard practice?
It used to be years ago. It's a little bit different now. Now we press the panic button and it typically goes to both sheriff's office and the third party.
I know our panic buttons at the bank in previous years when my niece was crawling under my desk and hit it. We slammed it pretty quickly. It doesn't take long.
if you're back.
Yeah, she's like, what's this? And I'm like, oh my God.
And when I look at all the different things, I mean, there's, all these places are scary, right? I think the least space for the employees, you know, especially over at the plaza, that doesn't freak me out as much as all the glass in all the beautiful civic spaces and all that. But really, when I look at all the different things and the cost versus the benefit, the panic button is my number one. You know, really, if you guys are looking at doing some kind of enhancement, to me that is, it's not a huge cost, right? It's not like putting in the bullet resistant glass, you know, that type of thing. And it's a really good bang for the buck, where somebody can just hit the button and we're coming. You don't have to pick up the phone, you don't have to do anything, you hit the button and we're coming, right? And that's, the quicker we can get there, the quicker we can get there, the better we can resolve a situation quickly.
That was kind of my roundabout way of asking, is that standard for it to go to the alarm company and then to call somebody else and then call the sheriff? That seems like an indirect route. And if you're hitting the panic button, you want to go right to the SO and have law enforcement show up as quickly as possible. I don't know what that change requires, if that's just reprogramming a wire. I have no idea, but how do we make that change?
Make the change. Just make the change. I mean, you're thinking about seconds count in something like this between life and death. You need immediate access to the sheriff's department.
Right.
You shouldn't be having this going through one person. Oh, they're busy. Let me send you somewhere else. That will get you.
Oh, please.
Yeah, right away to the police department if you want.
So we have panic buttons here.
Just here.
Just
the
here.
front desk.
So your recommendation would be, I mean, obviously change the one here, but install them at all
Community
town.
center and civic park, civic space.
Yeah.
Those would be my first ones to put
Okay.
in your.
I mean, that seems like
public
a-
space. It's-
No-brainer. What other suggestions from kind of the laundry list of options here do you think are reasonable for a community like us, knowing, you know, what we see on a day-to-day basis? What?
In my opinion, the tent that goes on the windows is a waste of money. It doesn't protect a bullet from going through. It basically makes it so the glass isn't going to shatter and come in. Great if you're trying to keep a burglar out, but not great if you're trying to keep bullets out. So I think that's a waste of money. I think the cost of doing the bulletproof glass is pretty substantial. I kind of agree with you, you know, if in 5 years down the road, a new town hall could come to fruition, right, instead of lease space and all that, that would be the time to do that under design, versus coming in after the fact and doing this room. There's no way nobody could afford to do it at either the civic space or the community center, right, with all the amount of class that's there. So to me, that one isn't as high on my list. I do like the bullet resistant, you know, on the desk and the Panels, yeah, the panels. So that, I think, is good. I've had discussions with the judge as well, and the judge is always fearful. We're in a different position with the judge because we're here, we're doing bonding and all that. We can't do that for a public meeting. That has to be a third party because otherwise we're going through people's stuff and it's considered a search. So if we find something, right, it's bad. We can do it because of the rules of law of it being a courthouse and judges' rules. So that, so even though, what I'm trying to say is even though the judge is more protected than you guys are in the council, I love the idea of the space to go, to hide, to get those seconds, right? I picture somebody coming in, you know, what goes, you don't want to see what goes through on my head, but you know, somebody comes in and they're going to take out 1 or 2 people before the rest of them get down on the ground, right? But that also means that we save 4, 5, 6, 10, however many people. So
in the communities that do need to pass through a metal detector before getting into the council chambers, those are contractors, those aren't actual, like, I think of Aurora.
Yep, just like when you go to the CU game and Argus is there, we can't be there during the searches because that's technically a search of that person because it's a public event.
Is there a window film or some sort of tint or something that can be put on these windows that, obviously it's cost prohibitive to make them bulletproof, but something to where like we can see out, they can't see in, like a privacy glass sort of situation? Because if you're standing outside, you're not going to be able to shoot something you can't see, where it's kind of like a mirror reflection. I've seen those before, and I don't know if that works at night, because I know sometimes if it's lighter in here and darker outside than the privacy glass, you can see right through it, which obviously in situations like, you know, winter, that would be. But is that something to where it would be maybe a more affordable way to mitigate that?
Yeah, and Nadine had some, I don't know what to call it. Film put on these windows, and it turned out really not very sightful. It was really, right? It didn't look good, so it came off. But something like that was maybe more attractive. There's definitely material out there that you can make it so you can't see through that glass.
But that's not going to stop somebody from shooting through it.
But if they can't see what they're shooting.
What if it's lit up? I mean, if I was angry and, you know, my career began in architecture and corrections. I did police stations, jails, all this, yada, yada, yada. And we were trained to think worst case scenario. So if somebody is angry, they come up and they see lights, just start shooting through the glass. You don't have to have a target. You know you're going to hit something. So darkening the windows, I don't think increases our level of safety. I think one of the ideas when I talked to Judge Soror, definitely put ballistic material here. It gives us a place to duck down and hide by the time the sheriff's deputy comes in the room. And we do have a sheriff's deputy every single meeting now, which something I asked Matt for, and he's provided. I just want to see a minimum level of safety in this room for everyone using it. And beyond that, when we look at the other areas, you know, cameras in the civic space, which is a huge ask. But also, if you look at where I think Brandon left the planning department, no means of egress other than the main entrance. If a shooter goes in there, they're stuck, they're trapped. So, and Kevin, I think you do have a secondary exit out of yours to the kitchen, I believe? Yeah, so they've got a means to get out to the stairwell. Planning doesn't. So there's other things that we have to take into consideration, not just materials, but how do we make sure staff has a means to escape. And I thought that Courtney had a fantastic idea with the fishbowl she's in. She cannot exit that room in case of a shooter. Putting a secondary door on the back where she can maybe exit into the kitchen, she can go out. She can, and that's not an expensive thing to do. Maybe block the door from the hallway and just have it so she goes in through the kitchen. Could provide her with an opportunity for safety. I kind of look at this as this isn't an if issue, this is a when issue. People are getting angry, they're disliking politics, they're not willing to have conversations anymore. And I don't want to have a conversation with somebody of why we couldn't provide a basic level of safety and security if something happens. I mean, you can never plan for these things, obviously, right? But God forbid something happened and we had an opportunity to at least do a modicum. And to Mike's point, and you and I have had this conversation before, what do we do if we do a new town hall? I totally agree with you. If we sink a ton of money into these rented spaces, you know, like you said, that's stuck there. The next tenant's going to benefit from that. But how long have we been talking about doing a new town hall? are we gonna get on it? It'd be great if we got on that, right? And then we could put the majority of the money into that, and the sheriff's department would be in the building as well, and that would be another level of safety, just having the sheriff's department on site. But I think my takeaway from all this, and this is my recommendation, and it's just mine, is that maybe we hire a security expert to come in and just look at everything, and then give us his recommendations on what he thinks things would cost on a tiered level. All the way, midway, just do the absolute minimum to make the place safe. And that way we can maybe sit down and say, okay, what's it gonna cost us? Because, I mean, this is gonna get expensive if we go all the way out, right? This isn't cheap. I'm not gonna lie to anybody and say it's a piece of cake. From an architectural standpoint, this is costly. But what price safety, in my mind? But we've got a budget and we've got some money, it's not a lot.
I don't know if we have $500,000.
No, we have 264, so we have a quarter, a little more than a quarter. So yeah, Neil, we're not going full bore, obviously.
I don't know that we have $250,000 on the budget for safety enhancements.
No, but don't we have, what are we looking at as far as?
That's the, I think what you're referring to is that's the ending fund reserve balance for the
Right, yeah,
CIP.
it's a surplus money that you could use. I mean, it's not earmarked for
Yeah.
for this. I mean, part of this is,
But read it up.
I asked Matt, because I only knew about this on Tuesday last week, for the data. Like, what data do we have on how many times has the panic switch been hit? How many threats have we had against staff? How many threats have we had, actual threats against board members? Those sorts of things. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm actually more fearful for my kids than anybody in this room. And I have been since the day they started going to school. Right? There's more children shot than elected officials across the country, and yet we're not talking about that. So I'm very reticent to go further down this path until we have some hard data. I mean, actually, I want to get rid of the dice. I think a lot of cultures don't like running for office because they don't like looking up at these elected bodies, and we start walling ourselves off even more. It's just going to create a whole bunch of other reasons for people to not run. So I'm not in favor of this. I do respect the fact that our staff needs to have panic buttons and everything else like that. But this is a very slippery slope of never-ending enhancements for threats that haven't yet materialized. Because I'd rather spend all this money at school.
That's just it. Threats never materialize until they materialize.
Fair enough, but why aren't we doing something about the schools? That's where all the threats are.
What control do we have over that?
Correct. We don't.
I 1,000% agree that we need to be doing a lot more in the schools, and if
we could pay
as
to
the
put our
town council, we could do more in our schools. Let's have that conversation. Maybe I'll run for school board next.
Well, I'm open to, I mean, looking at the numbers that were included in the packet, range from $15,000 to $475,000. So quite a range and a huge potential scope of work. But I think that having the panic buttons, that seems like a reasonable improvement at community center, at civic space, at town hall. Having
planning department too, for that space up there.
Yes, planning, and then also like cameras are so cheap now, right? Like the technology has just advanced. Like you can have a camera on every square inch of this town for a couple $1,000s, so I think installing cameras where we currently don't have them and kind of addressing the employees who are asking for them, who don't feel safe in this situation that they're in, seems like that's a very reasonable, so those are two problems that can be solved. Putting in cladding, putting in different windows, putting in a fishbowl or something like that. Would certainly want to understand what all that would cost, and I like your idea of getting a third party expert on it. I just wouldn't want it to be the guy that sells the stuff, because he's gonna.
Oh yeah.
So you need to be somebody who's not in the business of profiting from the recommendations that they're going to move forward. But addressing Judge Thrower, his concerns. I think just like all of our employees, we want to make sure that we're doing things that are reasonable under the circumstances. I think unfortunately in this day and age, though, being an elected, our job is to be out there, and there are crazy people, unfortunately, and you're not going to be able to completely, protect us against somebody who really wants to do something bad. Unfortunately,
Everyone knows where we live.
Yeah.
It's public record.
I think instead of like fortifying this place, I would like to see some, just like the students have to do active shooter drills, some training here for how people move around this space and all of our spaces and what the options would be so that they've run through it before, if something were to happen. I'd like to see investment in that kind of education for spaces that exist. But, a couple of years ago, there was a protest, and you may remember. And during that time, I spent several months not going to events, not feeling comfortable, being very grateful that it was summertime so my daughter wasn't in school. And never did I think about using taxpayer money to put up bulletproof glass and do things to take this space and turn it into what would feel like a concern for safety. And my thoughts during that process were, if I don't feel safe coming to do this job, if I don't feel safe in the role that I'm in, that I need to resign. And so there is some lanes for making some improvements, but the amount of money to spend on this blew my mind that there would even be a consideration that we would use taxpayer money to protect us, when I think we have an obligation to take care of staff. We have an obligation to protect them, and the panic buttons and options for them in the spaces that they're in where they have no safety, they don't have officer, they don't have the public cameras on them, I think that's a wonderful thing that could come out of this, but I would not be supportive of spending any kind of money and putting a little poke bubble around us. I just
This
don't
isn't
think
just
that's
us, though. I mean,
appropriate.
the judge is behind the dais. There are residents in this room when we're in session. Their safety is part of the equation. This isn't just 7 people want to feel safe.
There's no evidence to support that there is a need for this.
There's never evidence until it happens, is what I'm saying.
We could chase that forever.
Yeah, you could.
We
Or we
don't-
can, or we can make examples of, look, let's make it safer so the people in this building feel safe.
I'm still trying to understand where this is coming from. Where is this coming? Like, did something happen? Why is this amount of staff time and consideration for money going into something like this coming up? Like, what changed?
I'll just, in my own personal experience, the last several organizations that I've worked for, I agree, doing the active shooter training, it was part and parcel to, showing up, how you show up to work. That was in conjunction with other safety enhancements to the building to make sure that if the bad person got into the building, that damage was limited to confined areas. And I worked for a very large local government, and while there wasn't ballistic glass in the council chambers, the dais was hardened so that if there was an active shooter, council members could at least dive under that and be protected. So, even in Aurora, which I would say is probably different than Superior in a lot of ways. Anybody that shows up to a council meeting goes through a metal detector, gets wanted, and the dais is hardened. I think spending the upper end of this on the ballistic glass and all that stuff, I think needs to be part of a larger conversation, but I agree with the mayor that I think security cameras and panic buttons are a really good, easy first step. Let's go make those happen. And some of this other stuff, we could talk about how do we incorporate that into maybe the 2027 budget, because clearly we've adopted the 26 budget and this wasn't factored in. And I really appreciate Nadine just getting some better than back of the envelope price estimates, but this is a pretty significant range. And so if we are invested in this, we get a security consultant to give us the range of options, and then we can say, yep, not willing to spend this, or yeah, we want to do the minimum to begin with.
I think
and maybe it's a progression, like we start with a couple of really small things, and as resources and time and consideration it becomes available, then we say, yeah, we'll do these bigger things down the road, if
there's support for that.
I would just add that, one, just thinking about, budgets and kind of the practical reality of a project like this. If there still is like discussion and a potential appetite for doing some improvements to town hall, like, if we were redesigning town hall, there would be a different way of designing it, right? Like, having some sort of security, metal detector, foyer, entryway, room for security staff would be designed into the building's architecture to begin with, right? And like having certain security features, panic rooms, whatever it is, like whatever would be appropriate, I think would get designed. So like, I think that the conversation needs to be like, are we really gonna have that conversation? And if so, like, let's figure out what the budget is for that project and like what percentage of the budget is going to be kind of the security aspect. And then if we're not, then to what extent do we want to retrofit town hall to be adequately safe under those circumstances? But what we don't want to do is like spend $400,000 retrofitting town hall and then 5 years later scrape it and redesign town hall and waste taxpayer dollars. So we want to be just mindful about what's the plan.
Agreed.
So a couple of things you guys touched on, the active shooter training. We do that in-house at the sheriff's office, so we'll come out, do that. The other portion that goes along with that is de-escalation training. So our co-responder, Megan, she went and did de-escalation training at the community center. They recorded that. Allison has a whole presentation for new employees and all that can be spread more throughout than just the community center folks, the town hall, all that for de-escalation type things. So we can certainly get that set up at any point. I know, I don't remember how many years ago, I think it was me being the sergeant down here, but they did a active shooter training at the community center. And they can take it as far as we'll actually bring out Nerf guns that are auto fire. It's actually really fun to play with in the office.
You're saying that out loud.
I did say that. So we can take it as far as that, right? To try and get people's adrenalines up, and because that's when you start not thinking correctly.
Yeah, I think having some sort of training is a really good idea because to your point of people's adrenaline is up and you don't want it to be a foreign situation where none of us have figured out, like we all know the exit's there when somebody comes through there. I mean this one, but it's always closed and in a panic situation you're not able to hit code.
Mm-hmm.
So I think going through a training where it's a knee-jerk reaction and making that for staff, for us, anybody in the buildings, having that be a regular thing like, fire drills when you're in elementary school so that it's kind of ingrained in you. I think that's step one and seems like a very easy first step one. And I'd like to see panic buttons too in every single staff office, like planning and Kevin's office and here. And I think that seems for $1,200 or whatever it was, that feels like a really easy.
Yeah, maybe even the parks office, the bungalow,
Yeah.
and wherever staff is going to be, they need to be able to hit something.
Sorry, and given the fact that we share this room with court, what would you say is the minimum that you would do for this room to make it safer? Forgive me for putting you on the spot.
Is there a deputy here when the court things are
Two.
all the time?
2 deputies here. So court I feel more comfortable with, right? Because of the fact that we're searching everybody coming in. We're using metal detectors, right? We're going through people's bags. And we've got 2 deputies, one outside this room and one in this room the entire time court's going on. So if somebody certainly could come from the outside and shoot through the windows or, do things like that. If somebody wants to try and actively harm, they're going to do it. But because we're here, it makes me feel a lot more comfortable. I know the judge looks at his safety, right? He's a target and a half, right? Sentencing people to stuff. And I think the judge really would like that, hardened. For you guys, I kind of look at it one of 2 ways. Would be either, because currently we're staffing each one of your guys' council meetings So it's either that, so you've got that person there, but there's of course a cost to that. Or you do the hardening of the dais, so.
Do we know how much the hardening of the dais is? I don't remember seeing that, but I could have missed it.
Do you have that one specific?
Yeah,
Fiberglass panels.
depending on the finish, either 2,600 or 3,800
For the whole dais or per panel?
for the whole dais.
Seems reasonable.
It includes insulation, carpentry, all that? Yeah.
That feels reasonable.
I really do like the idea of a consultant coming in, right? Because I'm not a security expert of, this is what I would do, and this is, right, I'm more looking at coming in and taking care of the active threat and making sure everybody's safe. So I do like that possibility to have somebody come in and actually look at everything and say, here would be my minimum suggestion, right? And here's the top of the line. And that way, I think everybody can make an educated decision based off of that to say, it doesn't make sense to do this. He wouldn't even recommend doing that with the dice, right? He would recommend X, Y, or Z, so you don't know.
Well, why don't we do that? Why don't we hire somebody, have them take a look at not only town hall, but other employee facilities, see what the recommended improvements are, and then we can talk about whether we need to make a budget amendment or this is going to be something for 2026, 2027. All right. Well, thanks for all the information. It's an unfortunate day and age that we live in, that we have to consider these sorts of things.
That's just like the events, right? You know, putting the meridian barriers up for each of the events so we don't have cars driving down sidewalks, because that's the common attack, right? Something cheap and easy, I can go rent a U-Haul truck and kill 50, 100 people. So. Sad that we have to think about that.
All right, thank you both. On to item 1E, which is a discussion of Sundance Festival.
So Ellen's been working a little bit on this with her economic development pals. I know Jen hosted the community meeting. And so there's two items. One was whether to form a working group, and then Neil, your second one was?
Yeah, I mean, the second one, you know, I think it's specifically because CAPS has had a meeting and they're looking at potential, just, you know, certain potential events in 2026 to sort of build awareness around Sundance. It's like, okay, you know, we've got some movies that we could show, like, oh wait, we don't actually have a place to show movies. And it doesn't make any sense that the capital comes out of the CAPS budget. They would pay for the programming. You know, there's a great, if you look at the trailer, there's a movie called The Librarians. It's a potential movie that we could show here. It'd be phenomenal. But we don't have a place to project or show that movie. There's a shortage of projection space and movie space apparently across Boulder County. So it got me thinking, like, hey, we actually didn't put a single dollar in the budget for Sundance. It's a miss, right? So the question is, if we're going to, how much should? Well, obviously the budget's already produced, as Mike reminded us. It was more of, if the town is committed to doing something for Sundance, we got to find the cash and have staff sort of carve that out now, so we're not scrambling 4 months from now. And the only reason I asked for it to be in the Sundance thing is this came out of CAPS in the sense of, if they're going to show a movie over the civic space, do we rent it, do we buy it? And everybody was on Amazon trying to find a blow up screen for $126. It's like, no, that's.
So we have that LED screen in there? Or is that leased?
It's leased. Yeah. Yeah, and it's not a projector, right? It's one of those things, right? So that was just my ask here, is that, like, do we want to carve some cash? And if so, how much?
I mean, I think it's good to set aside some money for it. I think we want to be kind of ready to be nimble to be a part of Sundance. You know, until we actually like have an idea that like this is going to be used, like I wouldn't want us to spend like a ton of money on like a permanent. You know, if it's something that like makes sense to put into the civic space, that, you know, okay, like this is going to be used often and won't be outdated, then I'm fine making like an investment. But otherwise, like, you know, this is the sort of thing that you contract with like an AV company and they come in and they set up a screen that's going to kind of work for temporary showing. It'd still be professional and the sound would be good. look great. And, you know, it'll cost whatever it'll cost. It'll be a lot cheaper than buying it.
Yeah, but even rental versus buying is, we haven't carved that out either way. So-
Right.
Because you're absolutely right, you know, whatever you buy is going to be outdated the minute you actually install it, so.
Are we talking about this working with Sundance or is this on our own?
Well, before we get to that question,
Well, if we're gonna be spending money on something, it's,
well, I was going to, my comment was, I seem to recall 2 council meetings ago, Ellen was here talking about Sundance and said something to the effect of Sundance isn't even going to start talking to Boulder at all until like February or March of 2026. So I know we're all eager to get out and do something for Sundance, but do we have any idea of what that is yet? Because if they're not willing to talk to us until after the 2026 Sundance is over, are we getting ahead of ourselves? Again, I totally agree that I think we're all in on wanting to do something for Sundance, but is this just a little early?
well, yeah, why don't we let Ellen answer that?
And Jen too, she's
She's our spy.
Yeah.
I don't think it's too early to have some general, like, monetary, mental, like, it's going to be needed. And you could fill it in with a million blanks of like what that is, but there's going to be money that's needed in 26 for the event that's going to happen in 27. And I have, just because of friendships and relationships with people in Boulder or that work for different organizations, been able to hear and understand. So like they are meeting, they are talking about this stuff, but everybody is very similar to like our residents that I met with. They're thinking about what happens in the space that I'm in. So there's not a lot of like regional outreach or like connection happening yet at that point. And I do feel like there's gatekeeping of, you know, I feel like we should be doing that for our ideas and things that we are talking about. I mentioned in the email to you guys, like, keep these things close. The residents that are excited about it they could do those things in any town, right? And so there is some elements of that, but I think the coordination is going to happen more after Sundance is done and people really turn this direction. But I think the monetary part, like, we're going to need money for stuff for it. And it's going to have to get spent before January 27. And I don't know if that's 50,000 or if that's 200,000 or if we're already like, that's not even close to enough. I have no idea. And some of the ideas that the residents are having are really big ideas, which would, be a probably 3 to 5 year growth into those things, seeing how it all goes. But some of them don't require money at all. And so, yeah. And as I said in the email to all of you, I realized I didn't send it to you. I think I forwarded it to you. But I was being purposeful to not like create a meeting and want to make sure people, but I want to be really transparent too. Like this is not manageable by one person, and we're all going to get our asses kicked. And that's what I do know. And so I want to just share everything that I know. And we're planning a friend group to go in January to explore. Somebody who works for Boulder, somebody who works for the Community Foundation, and like this is just a support, like we're just getting in a car and we're going. Somebody we know lives there, we're gonna stay, and I'm just gonna learn everything I can learn, right? And I'll share all of that with you. And I apologize, I just realized I didn't send you the email of what the residents talked about when they met, but not a secret, but you're not up to date on that yet, so. That's all I got. That's all I don't have anything else so far. Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I stepped out for a second. Did you guys talk about that this is a 10-year commitment?
For
Sundance? The festival? 10-year commitment.
Yep.
So they're going to be in Boulder for 10 years.
At least.
I mean, I like to Mark's point, as we look at when we do know what to spend the money on, because obviously right now we have no idea. But when we do the ROI for that, and to your point, making sure that whatever we spend money on is something that could also work with use. Like, I love that screen for State of Superior. That was amazing. I'm like, gosh, we could do all kinds of presentations here. And this is something that we could use, and then we could, screen films. Like, that feels like something that's a benefit to the community, is an ongoing thing, as opposed to, pouring money into Sundance for whatever it happens to be that might not benefit the overall community.
I want to be sensitive, though, to the efforts that Ellen's already worked with on this, as well as the chamber, because they're working with the Northwest Chamber Alliance on working with the Sundance Festival to see what other communities can do. And one community has already overstepped the boundary of good common sense and gotten slapped back pretty hard by Sundance. So I don't want to see us getting in that crosshair, because year number one, we have nothing to offer Sundance. We don't have hotels. We don't have restaurants with larger scale, like 200 seating areas where they can lease it out. And that's going to be our big duties folly when we open up. That's going to be the food hall when we open up. We're going to have the hotel, year number two. The relationship that, I've been working with, just on an ancillary level, I want to make sure that whatever Ellen and Renee through the chamber want to do, they're to point people on it, not us, because I think we as electeds need to stay out of it. We shouldn't be looked at as if this is an all ancillary political position, but it should be the chambers of commerce that are doing it, because they're going to be the ones that are going to have the first primary seat to talk with the people at Sundance and to see what we can do. Things that I'm hearing from Sundance is year number one, it's all Boulder. They're not going to send anything out to any other communities. It's going to be the city. And that makes sense, right? I mean, the city of Boulder is the ones that got the bid, so they're going to be the ones that they're going to focus on the investment. Year number two, they'll probably revise that and take a look and see. And I think what we can try to offer them year number two is, how do we supplement what Sundance is doing, not interfere by doing a festival or doing something that's competing. Hotel space is lacking. What was the number of hotel spaces? Do you have any idea? It's a large number, right?
5,000?
Yeah, okay.
Short, they're
Okay.
short, I think 5,000.
Then that's an opportunity for other communities like Broomfield and Louisville in the first year to step up. Broomfield's got Interlochen and the Omni, which are higher end hotels. I don't know how many rooms they've got in those, but that could be one thing. Louisville's got the mid to lower range ones right across the highway. Year number two, we're gonna have a hotel. And this could be something that could benefit us. And this is another conversation, but Matt, don't take anything from developers coming in to put the second hotel in, wanting all this monetary advances from us, because I think once Sundance kicks in, that element spot's gonna be hot. We're gonna be able to get a developer to do that without a lot of economic incentives out of our back end on that. But I just think that having Ellen for economic development and through chamber running it, I think would be the best bet for us.
Yeah.
I think it makes sense for us to release, because like what I've just heard anecdotally is not only is there a shortage of hotel space, but there's shortage of the venues. We've got a nice venue. It has capacity for 100, 150 people. So it's not the Bowler Theater, it's not the Fox, but it's a big room. It's brand new. It's got great AV.
It's got good parking.
And we have the ability to set up a stage and put up a screen, and it could be used. So, I mean, that's just like something that doesn't cost us anything to offer it, to the extent that they have showings that need to be somewhere. And so just to let them know that, like, let us be on the radar here. Like, this is a venue that, come take a look at it. It's available. And, maybe our contribution is we're waiving costs associated with renting it. Like, we're just saying, like, it's free to use during Sundance. Like, have at it. Maybe we provide the screen and the system. But I kind of feel like the festival will, like, we'll have a better idea, in year two of how to position ourselves to be a part of it. But, I think in terms of like missing the opportunity from the front end, just making sure that they know that the civic space is available, and we want to have people use it, not just for Sundance, but just in general, is what we should be telegraphing. So like, I don't know how to necessarily get that to Sundance so they're aware of it, but maybe some sort of like official letter from the town council that just says like, hey, like, welcome to Boulder. We're so happy that you guys are coming. We're Boulder's neighbors to the south. And we've got this great brand new civic space. We think it would be a great spot for state-of-the-art
Cutting edge.
capacity for X number of people, and would love to make it available for you. Maybe we tell staff to block it off so nobody rents it during Sundance. Maybe we could do that and get out in front of it. So it's not being rented for some other organization, so at a minimum, it's available. And then just see what they say. They might just say, like, we're gonna stick to Boulder, like you're saying, Jason. But at least then we've taken some like affirmative step to make it available.
And it's not like it's out in the middle of nowhere. We have amenities right here, so that can make it like a sexier thing.
10 minutes to downtown Boulder. Sort of. Right?
Depending on traffic.
Yeah. Street parking.
Just go faster.
Yeah.
15 minutes to downtown
Did you see his face when you said that? I'm really glad that I was looking in that direction. He was like,
Oh, and also.
on a Sunday morning.
okay.
Or the midnight showing.
Yeah.
For the midnight showing.
Well, Louisville and Broomfield are going to work with RTD on having shuttle service going as far back as the Broomfield exit. So that could be something that could naturally draw people in this area and back and forth. So if they can't get the hotel spaces, and this is something Mike and I were talking about, the short-term rental, is that something that we would have to adjust in order to facilitate the ability to take advantage of Airbnbs if people want to rent an entire house for the week? Do we need that person on site, or can that person be 30 minutes away? I just can't remember. Maybe if you had a recognition of that, because that could certainly help us out the first year.
We would have to adjust it.
Our permit process requires the owner to
To
be
be on the premises, correct?
in Superior.
But not on the premises.
They don't have to be on the premises.
Okay. Or are they going to go with a hotel for them to stay in?
But they need to own,
Be neighbors.
it can't be
living together.
a second home.
Right.
It needs to be their primary residence.
Just tent city somewhere.
Yeah, that was the key, right? Like they can't be somewhere.
They
If they're not,
can't go to
they're renting out their
Hawaii.
whole primary residence.
Yeah, that should be able to respond in, I thought it was 60 minutes.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
But they have to physically be in.
They don't need to be in Superior, but they need to be responsive within 60 minutes or
Oh,
something
okay.
like that.
No, that's, yeah, you're right.
So they can't be in Hawaii.
Yeah, but they could be at their friend's house in Golden or
Right.
in Denver.
Airbnb.
They won't be able to get a hotel.
Airbnb is really cute, especially
That's
when
what's at their friend's house.
people are already talking about whole house rental out. People want to be able to rent out the entire house, and you can make quite a bit of money doing that for the week and a half. So, that's another opportunity for our residents to tap into this. And we're supplementing what they're trying to do in Boulder without doing anything really.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be a ton of unlicensed Airbnbs that are just going to happen.
Can we hear what Ellen has to say? She hasn't said much.
Ellen, you talk too much.
Ellen, do you want to download anything from your brain into our brains so that we know anything?
Let's see.
Or not, I
know
mean, no pressure.
For 2027, they already have the screens in Boulder at CU and City of figured out, and they're working on sponsors for those, so that's that. They are focusing on 26 right now, and then February, March, they're going to come back and get more organized with the regional groups. So all that's, you guys already know all that. The US 36, economic development people, we've all been talking kind of high level ideas of how we can all collaborate regionally and try and get activities going throughout the region. So it's not just people want to come to one location. But how can we make us all be able to take advantage of things? Renee and I are talking other different ideas, how to better support the businesses. The SBDC is going to 26 and talking with the Park City SBDC to figure out best practices for preparing the businesses and what has been successful for those businesses and what hasn't been. So they're going to come back, and we've gotten them to agree to do some workshops for our businesses. Fall of 26 sometime.
to better prepare them for that and take advantage of that with marketing, preparation of products and things like that. And we're going to try and push that. We've talked about getting in touch with the hotels around here and just kind of pushing what we have to offer in terms of businesses and services. So a lot of conversations are happening. We're just trying to figure out how that's all going to come together. But that's all very business oriented, and a lot of that's community events, entertainment oriented. So that's kind of where our focus has been, on businesses.
I want to clarify something. It just occurred to me when you said that. Is my intent in all of this is to the residents want to like talk about stuff, and they want to, so that is not a business lane at all. Like that is not, and it's not engaging with Sundance. It's not, so it's all very organic and coming from, what do community members want the community involvement to look like, and that's the lane that I'd like to stay in. So I like when I go do the recon, it's really just like information gathering and see what's work, but I'm not doing any of it. Like I'm not wearing my official hat. I'm not doing any official, like this, that is your lane. That's a chamber lane. And when it comes to the appropriate time for the town to be involved in anything like that, I'll just be following your lead on that. So I just wanted to clarify, because I think, so just to make clear.
I mean, that's about residents, they can do whatever they want. They don't need our permission.
Yeah.
They're free to do,
And on the other topic of the working group thing, they have no interest in becoming a formalized working group for the town. They do not want staff. They don't want to be hampered by any of the, like, you must announce, like, they are not interested in any of that stuff. So this is a very much like a community-driven, community-organized effort. And I think they're just really grateful that somebody that they believe has some authority is like, I will make a meeting and you can come and talk about it and I'll share that with everybody. And so that's the, like, essentially I'm being the liaison for them, and that's it. And if anything comes up from like a business lane or something that I learned, like I will happily send that your way, because I am out of my depth in those lanes. Even the art side of it, I keep telling that group, I'm like, this is not my thing, but people are, and I can like accommodate that for you. And whatever you turn this into, awesome. I'll cheer you on and make sure the whole council is aware of it so that you guys don't have to go out and do all those things. So
you should have them do, and I mean this in all seriousness, have them talk to Carol Burkett and Sandy Hammerly, because they have run the senior projects just in such an amazing fashion, and they absolutely refuse to have a council, any advisory committee created on that. So, and they love doing things like this, and they've got the time, and they can certainly shepherd the residents through how to do it, because what they've been able to pull off all on their own without us is phenomenal.
I think I told Matt this, but like some of the residents they plan festivals and Super Bowl, like they are thinking about this from a perspective that's so far out of the lane that my mind would go. And so I think they just, I don't know that they need anything from us, but I think that I think it's important for us to be in communication with them and kind of see where things are going. But the skill set, it was just like with the fire recovery, the amount of people with skill sets needed to recover that showed up and that we just have in our community was unbelievable. And I see that happening in LA, and I saw where in Maui they didn't have as much of that, and where it was harder for them. But on this, the people connected to the arts community and that are surrounded with events and philanthropic like connections, and like this is so much bigger than anything that my brain can conceive. So I think we just need to like support them in whatever it is that they want to do. I don't even think they're not looking, it's not monetary, it's not like any authority. I think they just want to be a part of it.
Great. So if I'm hearing everybody, it sounds like we don't need to form an official working group.
It would mutiny.
I think it
do not
does.
want that.
I don't know whether it's a stupid idea or not, but I mean, sending a letter to like the official Sundance and just say like, hey, welcome, we've got a venue if you want to use it. We're here. Like that doesn't cost any money, and we're not being presumptuous. We're just saying like, hey, in case you need additional space, we've got it.
State of the art, cutting edge.
Let's do that.
Supportive. Like, we're here to support.
And then let's put some money in the budget for 27.
27 for sure.
I don't know what that dollar amount is, 50 grand or something.
I was thinking 75 as a placeholder, just to, as a
To
conversation
be able
starter.
to hire AV equipment or whatever it is. And then we'll just kind of see how it goes and continue to keep us updated with what you're hearing and.
Yeah, that's put you on the
I think
spot.
the letter sounds like a great
Mark,
idea.
would it be better if Ellen does it, if economic development with the chamber does it rather than us doing it? Because it seems like if they're gonna be working with them anyway, it seems like a natural.
I mean, it's our
Town property, yeah, town asset.
I mean, we could do it with the chamber and, you know, co-sign it and do it on both mastheads, but just say like, hey, we're the neighbor to the south, we've got a venue, we're excited, we love film, we'll be there regardless, but to the extent that you have a need for additional space, like we've got some space, come check it out if you want.
I think that speaks to the, like, the uniqueness that is this small town, is extending the, like, hey, like, we're really glad that you're coming, and how, you know, how can we support this, like, that keeps with the identity of what this is, because we are not Boulder, and we are, you know, we have some things to offer, but not a lot, and I like that. It's like very small towny.
Yeah, and they could just be like, this is, look at these idiots, right? Like, you know, or they could be like, yeah, that's great, we need a space. You never know.
Okay, you bake an apple pie and you deliver to them, that message. Whole kind of neighborhood type.
It's like when Dorothy arrived in Oz, you know, and they came out and they were like, we're so happy you're here. Great, now go over there.
Here's where you go. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ellen.
Thank you.
Thanks. Your hair looks great.
Up next is our recap of our priorities, which we already talked about, but we can now get in with your contributions here, Jen. I'll just give you a review of what we talked about already.
Okay.
So basically, we ran through the 4 items that I talked about in the state of Superior that I sent in my email. So like infrastructure, economic development, RMMA, and marsh fire recovery. The infrastructure is basically investing the bond proceeds on Rock Creek Parkway, on the pools, and the community park playground on Indiana Street. And then economic development is kind of a lot of the things that are happening already, but you know, Alta Flatirons construction, Kite Creek Crossing, Bixby's Folly, Main Street leases, Food Hall FDP, which is going to be coming soon, breaking ground on blocks 2 and 5, and then the Sundance Film Festival as well. And then there were additional suggestions from the rest of the council about just managing expectations on staff, recognizing staff's involvement in everything that we ask them to do, continuing the employee survey, which we already talked about, recognizing also that this is an election year coming up, so there's going to be, you know, staff responsibilities in that. And then also the zip code efforts, continuing that, and then senior housing market rate, not just affordable housing, should be something that is a priority. So
I have the ADUs, ADU Expo, just really promoting ADU development, redevelopment through the grant money that we got, and essentially, you know, having a handful of pre-approved plans specific to things like Rock Creek or the communities that are actually here. And then the affordable housing development, which something's already in there. But also I had, I've talked about this before, and honestly, the regional housing group that I'm working on really took up a lot of my attention, and I've let this fall. But the cultural community inclusion, whether it becomes like an advisory group or it becomes just a collective of residents that want to be working, like there's a handful of folks that have already said, I want to do that. So it's been on me to be like, let's get them together, and I haven't done that yet. but to have more events that actually are matching some of the community members that are here that are underrepresented. Something like a Diwali celebration or an Eid celebration, something that's like educational in the community center or civic space. But these would be, put on by residents. So this isn't, this would be more like they rent the room and have people come versus a staff-supported thing. But what I could easily see that turning into is some sort of a cultural inclusion or community cultural group. So I've talked to Kevin a lot about this, but it's been like a year since. And then Sadia and I were engaging about it, and then she congratulations again, took a position, and so I feel like this keeps getting dropped, and something I'd like to really focus on this year. Now that I have several community members that have expressed interest in doing these things.
Okay.
Yeah, Barnes and Noble. I was working to tee up a 3-month book series, just something I was going to do on my own with Cydia and outside of the council lane, but to start to gather those people that have interest in those kinds of things. And then I got very overwhelmed by all the things. So this year, 2026, we're going to do this.
Okay.
There's a lot going on.
Are you thinking kind of one way, are you leaning one way or the other in terms of formalizing an actual advisory group on this, or?
I imagine that is where it will end up, because I see, and I follow a lot of other councils in the areas around us, and they have these things. They also have double the population, and there's a lot more going on in some of those places. So I would imagine that as this grows, that they will probably want to have some staff support down the road, but just it's not there. It's just a concept right now. So that'd be great at the end of 26 if it existed, but probably 27, something like that.
Okay.
I don't want to force. It should be something I, as a white woman, cannot tee this up. That doesn't work. But I also want to be cautious of not asking the people who don't look like me to lift it all. So there will be support needed, and there will be funds needed eventually, but I think it should grow into whatever is appropriate for the people that want to be involved in it.
I would just say that not a reflection on you or who you are or who anybody is, but if you're interested in something, you can certainly be a part of advancing it.
Change. For sure. Oh, that reminds me. I'm aware that the chamber is ready to support a Pride event in 2026, but they're not hosting it. And so far as I know, that won't happen unless a community member or I will stay involved with it. But I really don't want us to not have that, especially with some of the uptick in hateful behavior in our community. I know that they do them in other communities around us, but even if it's a small event, I really think it's important that we represent as a town. That I don't know what it's going to look like, but that's another goal that I have. But that's maybe more personal.
Well, we fly our Pride flag during Pride Month.
And the Rocky Mountain Equality does a really good job of getting flags to businesses. And but I think I got feedback from residents last year that they were disappointed that we didn't have one, because we had two. We had the inaugural one, and then we had the second one, and then we didn't have one, and they were like, what? And so I think that I got enough feedback that it's important to people that they want to see that happen again. I just don't know what it looks like, and when I reached out to the chamber, they are they have too many things, and so adding another event, but they were very happy to support it. So I don't know what it'll look like, but I'm sure there'll be people, residents, that want to get involved and make that happen. Yeah.
All right. Any additional priorities?
Get more people to run for council. That's gonna need to happen.
All right, on to our meeting schedule for next year.
So for the past.
They're all canceled.
For the past several years, the council's made decisions for the upcoming year on what meetings to cancel in advance. Typically, it's been March, the second meeting in March, because of the spring break with schools. Meeting in the summer, usually June or July, but it's been July lately, the second meeting in July.
Last
Second
8 years.
meeting. Yeah.
Last 8 years.
Yeah, second meeting in November and the second meeting in December. We also have the second meeting in May, falls on Memorial Day, so the question would be, do you want to reschedule that for the Tuesday, which is what we did last year, I think, or just cancel that meeting as well?
BVSD also changed their calendar, so they moved spring break up, so it is no longer this
It's the
conflicting with the second
Yeah,
meeting in March.
Yeah.
So,
March 16th is the week.
yeah, so
Ooh, that's early.
they do it sandwiched right between our two meetings. So, I mean, my preference would be to continue the July, November, December cancellations. So Thanksgiving week, Christmas week, and then the last meeting in July for summer break. And then I'd be open to not canceling the March meeting if it doesn't conflict with BVSD. And frankly, my personal preference would just say, like, let's cancel the second meeting in May on Memorial Day.
Yeah.
So do 2 meetings in March and then only 1 meeting in May.
Oh, at the end of the school.
Yeah, I think that should make sense. But the one thing I will caution is on November, and it feels like we do this every election year, is we try to cancel the second meeting in November, and then something happens, and we need to we need to have a second meeting in November. Last year it was the home rule, the year before that, it was a PD, and the year before that, it's like all these different things always seem to happen in an election year. So I would just kind of caution, granted it is Thanksgiving week, and the election won't be certified, but we may need that meeting, so just keep it ready.
Keep it as a placeholder just in case.
Yeah, I don't know what else to do.
Yeah, I mean, we can always plan to have the plan to cancel it, and if we need to, it's there.
I mean, maybe this is the year we don't actually need that second meeting in an election year, but.
If you say it.
But you say, but you just changed it.
Yeah.
So,
I'm sorry, this is related to the last topic we were just talking about, but next December is the 5-year anniversary of the Marshall Fire, and that's probably, like, I know that we did a 1 year, and then the second year was like, okay, we're not gonna do, and then it was kind of like, we're gonna do something on the 5 years, so just to put that on everybody's
Yeah.
radar.
And there's budget next year for that.
I feel confident that we will not need the second meeting in November.
I'm right there with you.
Way to go. So we're gonna have it.
So, so thoughts?
I mean, to your point, if March isn't a conflict, just keep that on the calendar and cancel the second November meeting.
Second May meeting.
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense.
So no second May, no second July, no second November, no second December?
So moved.
And then work sessions, your proposed was March 2nd, June 1st, August 31st, and December 7th?
Yeah, and that last one, December 7th, we also could do, I think it's November 30th. That's the Monday after Thanksgiving, similar to what we did this year. My thought was push it out a couple of weeks and do it on the 7th, if you're okay with that.
I'll be a new board.
And that will be the first meeting for the new council.
That's correct.
All right. Okay, so
And then work sessions with advisory committees, if you're still good with having them from 6 to 7 before council meetings, we'll do that again.
yeah, dinners.
Yep, dinners.
and Matt, is the goal to try to get all of those done before budgets are submitted, so
Yeah.
that their budgets are submitted to their staff liaison, correct?
And is there any other groups we need to meet to, like we talked about Louisville City Council? Because I have not been in one of those, so it hasn't been at least a year.
Yeah.
And I know I
It's been
don't.
like 2 years.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
I think the last time we met with them was over at the golf course.
And that's been,
I mean, we've had discussions with them and requests, but because of things that are going on over there, they've told us they're not ready. But I think they should be.
at this point, I mean, their city manager's been on board for like 6 months
Yeah,
now, right?
that's
I think
great.
if they're not ready now, they don't want to meet with us.
Right.
It'll help them get ready. I feel like.
And then the HO, I'm assuming the Rock Creek HOA board, you'll want to meet with a couple, 2-3 times next year.
I think at least one. I mean, I'd say 2 is, or 3 is a lot, given, we don't even meet with our own advisory committees that often, right? It's sort of a little.
Definitely once, maybe twice, as necessary.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then anything with county commissioners?
We haven't met with them in a while.
We haven't met with them over there.
But the last time was post-fire, and it was a very heated discussion. It was on, and that was very specific to the housing development and everything else. But yeah, it's worth having that meeting.
They usually come individually if there's like a issue, right?
Mhm.
Like the minimum
They have something on
wage
the
or
ballot.
Whatever, like they,
Yeah.
and is there, somebody's got to run next year? Ashley.
Yes.
I don't run against you.
Well, no,
All right. We're good on 2026 meeting? All right, item H, discussion of the C-Click Fix process.
So this is, you can either do it through the town website or through an app. It's provided by the company, C-Click Fix. And it's a way for residents to report issues, non-emergency issues usually, through those 2 venues to staff. Typically it involves potholes or damaged sidewalk or graffiti or those type of things, which we try to respond as quickly as possible, usually Monday through Friday during business hours, but sometimes our code enforcement individuals are out on the weekend if they need to be. So usually we try to get a response out in a day or 2, such as with snow removal and RV parking. And then if it's not resolved, we'll issue a compliance action through the municipal court to have the court take action. We've done that with a couple properties in town. For those items that can't be addressed immediately because they're longer term items such as construction projects or infrastructure repairs or other budget constraints, we'll typically try to respond, acknowledge that we received it, and then once we have resolution, provide an update to the resident through C-Quick Fix. Some of these issues we don't have any control over, like if the light pole goes out on Rock Creek Parkway, we've got to wait until, Excel is able to replace that light pole, which has taken a while.
It's taken like even longer lately, like the one in front on,
I mean, it could take up to 9 months.
yeah, it's insane. It's like a pitch black in front of Target. And,
Does the person who sends that request get that information? Like, do they get told?
It
that is
depends
now
what the
a
staff,
thing?
so each department has a staff person or persons that respond to these, and it depends on what that staff person puts in there.
Yeah.
But they should be putting as much detail as they can.
Especially if it's not
So the
ours,
resident has,
so that they
knows
know.
that hey, we've
Yeah.
acknowledged this light pole's down, but it could
Yeah.
take 6 to 9 months for it to get replaced.
And Matt, do we have, since 2025 is not yet over, and I would imagine by the end of the year will be double what it was from 2022, do you have any data on how many are repeat requests for the same item, or any data on the time it takes for staff to respond to the initial requests? Do we have that kind
Yeah,
of?
the data we get through C-Quick Fix isn't that great, but we're working with them to try to get that additional detail and data that make it available. Not only for ourselves, but for residents, for the council, to better understand.
Because just anecdotally, from some of the first Fridays, my impression is that some residents aren't getting the response that they want, and so we're continuing to submit the same request, saying they're not getting it
We do have
resolved.
some of that, yes.
And so,
That's what I thought you were going to ask, the repeat offenders. that keep submitting.
well, I just want to make sure that if we can't, if staff has said, we can't fix the light pole because it belongs to Excel, and that same individual is continuing to submit see-click fix, that there's nothing that we can do, and so if that somehow gets elevated to town council, that we can provide support to say, yep, we've reached out to Excel and it's in their queue, and unfortunately we don't have a timeline for that getting fixed.
Right, then that's the information that should be in the response to the resident.
Yeah. But any data that you're able to get from see-click fix would be at least helpful for me. I don't know.
Do you think it's working? Do you think that there's anything that we need to do differently?
I think from staff's end, we need to be better about the information we put out there and the updates that are given. I think some of the departments struggle more with that than other departments, so we're working to correct some of those internal.
I mean, I think generally, like, I think it's a great service, and it's an easy way for the people who know about it, right?
Yeah.
And that's like another thing, right? Like communicating that this is like an option, so they don't need to necessarily call town hall or send an email to us or to you or anybody, but letting them know that this is like a effective way to like report a sign that got blown down because of the wind or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, a good example is the bollards that Neil sent me an email about, and we discussed that when we were talking about the bridge.
We did, right, and
Yeah.
that's why, and this gets into the whole, like, people will grab us safely, and it's like, hey, man, I'm putting this stuff in ClickFix.
Right, yeah.
And that's how I
yeah.
feel about it.
So I followed up with staff on that, and they provided me a response on what we're doing there and why, but I don't think that was shared. with
I
anybody.
mean, I haven't been on ClickFix since I sent you that, so.
So, I mean, we gotta be better about that.
Do we have, like, is there, like, from the kind of admin side of things, is there a way to, like, easily, like, is this a good system for us to know, like, if we have something that, like, hasn't been responded to, like, is there, like, an alert, does it flash red, like, this is 7 days old without a response?
Yeah,
Sort of thing.
there's a way to note that, and the department heads, or Martin gets them as well from the code enforcement side, make notes of those, and so they can follow up on them. But it's a good system. It's convenient for residents. Makes us aware of some items that we may not have been aware of. Graffiti is one of them, because council gets those emails about graffiti. Another way to do it is through this app as well, so.
Do you know, like, are other municipalities using the same system? Are they using something different? Like,
There's
should we be
a
looking
number
into,
of,
like, a different
I mean,
vendor?
there's a number of cities that use this, but there's other apps out there that are available as well. I don't have the exact number or anything like that, but we can find out.
Yeah, I mean, it would just be good to know, like, are we using something that's, like, outdated, and if there's something that's better, more convenient for people to use. You want to make sure that it's something that's, like, easy to use on staff's end and easy to use from residents' perspective, and
Yeah.
cost effective as well.
Yeah.
But I think it's a great system. Periodically, I'll go on there and just kind of see what people are complaining about, and then I'll stop doing that and be like, why am I doing that?
Just go on next
Isn't that Facebook?
Just go on,
Yeah, and then I go on Facebook and I'm like, wait, why am I doing this?
Yeah, for what it's worth, I think it's a great way for the community to kind of, let staff know. Like, a lot of other communities don't have anything like this. They have a phone number they call, and I get frustrated because it's a voicemail, and then there's no, at least with ClickFix, there is at least some acknowledgement that at least it's been reviewed by a human. Whether or not the satisfaction is received from, like, how it's fixed is a different story, but at least it's an opportunity to get things addressed right away.
Yeah, people in downtown seem to like it, from people I've talked to who've used it. It seems very, very helpful.
Yeah. We pay for that program though, right? Like,
Yeah,
I mean,
we do.
because as far as, like, because it's funny because sometimes I forget the website and I go to ClickFix and it shows you all over the country other quick fixes. There's none others in Colorado, if I recall. I'm surprised more communities aren't using it. Are they using something different?
Yeah, there's different
Okay.
apps out there. you can use.
Yeah, well, let's just look into see, is there something better that's out there that maybe we should be using instead? But,
Sure.
if there's a recommendation to make a change, like, let's consider that.
Yeah.
All right, any additional thoughts, comments? All right, final item for the night, besides other items, is defining/revising the working relationship for CAPS.
So I asked to have this put on there, and then we all got the very helpful email from Drew Vaughn,
Yep.
and that basically summarized a lot of what I wanted to talk about. And just some background here, it just seems like a lot of our advisory committees kind of go through these evolutionary phases. 3 years ago, there was a lot of tension between ProStack and OSAC because ProStack included the word open space in it, so the question became who owned open space. So we fixed that, and ProStack became Park. We took open space out of their name, and it clearly delineated who owned what, and that was fine. But and this took a transition of the people who were on these committees to kind of turn over to allow for those changes, because previous versions of ProStack would have never given up the open space piece of it. So that changed, and I think we're kind of at that stage now with CAPS where it's worth reassessing what it is that CAPS was sort of created to do, what we're asking it to do, what it thinks it should do, what staff wants it to do. I don't have any answers on any of this. All I know is that the way it's working right now is actually not working. It's creating more problems. We, like Drew pointed out, we had 2 resignations in just the last couple of months, and both of those members specifically referenced the relationship they have with staff, and that this isn't why they joined the committee. But the CAPS charter is very different because folks show up for a park meeting, they show up for an OSAC meeting, they go to the meeting, and then they never do anything. Like, nothing against them. Like, their whole point is to come to the meeting, provide direction, then staff goes and implements. CAPS has always been very different. And that's been one of the greatest things about CAPS, because they've got the contacts. They're the people who are able to go off and find the Mural Fest rep in Boulder. They're the people who are able to go find some of these artists that are doing some of these events. They're the ones hosting some of the sessions at the community center for glassmaking and glassblowing. So I don't know how to fix this, but I thought we should, if time allows, at least have a conversation around what it is that we think it should be doing.
Yeah, I thought Drew's email was really helpful and illuminating, right? And I mean, I was really surprised. I mean, Drew is the chair of CAPS, chair of the Remembrance Committee, and it was a surprise to him about the concert in downtown, like for Face, that was a fundraiser for the Remembrance Committee, and something like that. Like, at a minimum, just being aware that it's happening and like who's planning it and where it's coming from. I mean, we weren't kind of briefed on like where it came from either. So I think some communication improvements are warranted for sure. But in terms of like figuring out like what the appropriate role is, CAPS has changed also. Like, it's kind of started out like primarily comprised of like visual artists, and then we had people that were into like music and theater arts, and it just kind of like evolved with like the composition of the group, and I think that's great. And now we have murals and all these events and great workshops. So I mean, I'm really thrilled with like considering like where we were 10 years ago, and like now where we're at in terms of like all the art that has come to the town is fantastic. But figuring out like what the appropriate role is for the advisory committee, and then what the appropriate role is for staff, and like making sure that people aren't stepping on each other's toes and that adequate communication is happening, definitely needs to happen. So
to your point about communication, I'll call it best practice. When I was chair of ACES, something that Alexis and I did, we always met 2 weeks before the scheduled ACES meeting to kind of talk about and pregame what we thought the agenda items were going to be, and kind of macro level things that are happening within the world of sustainability that could impact the town, so that she and I were on the same page. So when the call went out for agenda items to the committee, we were in lockstep. So I don't know if that type of communication is happening now between the staff liaison and Drew. If it isn't, I would recommend that being kind of the first step, just to kind of start to improve some of the communication. I personally found it really helpful to have that kind of connection with town staff, Alexis. Made sure that we were on the same page with things that were coming up, or if staff had a different perspective, we talked about that during the ACES meeting.
And do you have any thoughts on kind of like how staff is working with the advisory committee, and like what the delineation of like roles and responsibilities should be, and what should be communicated to the advisory committee? Because like, I mean, obviously the advisory committee, it's residents, they're volunteers, they're giving their time. We don't expect them to do the work that we have staff paid to do, but we certainly don't want them feeling slighted and feeling like their service doesn't matter because they're not being consulted or listened to.
Yeah, I mean, the staff's role there is to help assist the committee to implement their, working plan for the year. And we'll go out and do the legwork as far as getting costs for certain things, if it's an event, or helping to coordinate with vendors for an event and securing the venue for it, and help guide them in any questions they have as far as their work plan or anything that's coming up for the committee. It's difficult because each committee is different, and some are more active and want to take a larger role in the events, and that can create some challenges at times, and miscommunication at times, and challenges as far as who does what. And so, I mean, we're there to assist the committee in whatever role they need, but it varies from committee to committee.
Is this different because of the artistic piece of this? Because like on parks, like when we wanted a playground, the staff just went and found all the like nobody had any ownership to those relationships.
Yeah, I think there's
and with CAPS, it seems like they have relationships with
Yeah.
the artists, and they want to be included in the. So it is different, I think.
Yeah.
But
and from the onset, this
yeah.
committee has been, different in that aspect.
Yeah.
Well, and I think your question is really spot on, because like, let's say we've got a staff member who's really good with, getting sculptures, and then the board pivots says like, we want more murals, right? Like, so how does the staff member sort of adapt to that? Because they can lean on CAPS, because there's like a couple of CAPS members that have these contacts that can do these things. And that's kind of the awkwardness, because the board kind of changes its ideas and what it wants to see. And art is weird, because like you can be really good at one type of, sort of securing a certain type of art and pivoting to something else. You don't have those relationships. Versus, park. I know playgrounds. Like, there's 16 different versions of playgrounds, and that's it. Like,
right.
There's nothing
it's
else.
like 5 vendors, and we're gonna get pink, purple, or yellow. What do you want?
Well, it's more like there's like a discrete like project, right? Like there's a new trail that's coming, like what should it be named, right? Like there's a new playground, like what are the amenities that you want to have like incorporated in it?
And then you crowdsource that with public engagement too.
Right, but then it's like go do art, right? Like there's a lot of different ways to, but I mean even then, like when we did the Zephyr and Triptych, like we had CAPS, like okay, like look at these suggestions that were brought to them from the developer, and they had the budget, they had the recommendation that came to us with the recommendation, and the town board said, no, we're not going to go follow that. We made our own decision, so.
I think that's what I heard from some of the CAPS members was that they come onto the committee with the intent to be involved at a different level, right? And so maybe it's a matter of either managing expectations or having the staff that's fluid in that that it isn't gonna look like it looks for the other committees. And I don't know what that looks like, because that would be very confusing to me as a staff member to just have to move around in a different shape and form depending on who I'm dealing with in the moment. And I know she manages her own budget of like art, like, so she's got like her own stuff. That's complicated. I'm sorry, I don't have an answer. I'm just thinking about it out loud of like, what are the dynamics here of this thing?
I think the other unique aspect of CAPS is if the committee wants the town to go purchase or enter into an agreement with an artist to paint a mural or whatever, that's a contract, and there's certain requirements that the town has to go through, and it can't just be, I call it my best friend who I know can paint this mural, and yeah, come out and paint this and we'll pay you 20 grand.
No, and that was a learning process this past year for CAPS, because now they understand it. They all got really educated on the RFP process for murals. But when we did some of the other murals, like the ones in the in the community center, there wasn't an RFP process. So now we've gone through that, and now we've got a slew of CAPS members really well educated on how to do that. If we lose that, then we're like starting over.
Right.
Staff will have the understanding, but there's definitely a process to it that we didn't have a regimented process before.
So maybe the best, rather than us trying to figure out like how to solve it is, maybe we ask CAPS to like suggest to themselves, and maybe we ask staff also like for, any sort of specific concrete like changes that could be made either to the structure of CAPS or like a clear division of labor between like staff and what our volunteers are doing, just so people kind of understand like what they're getting themselves into, and there's just better understanding of the roles and the communication that's going to be occurring, and because we want to make sure that people are still willing to serve the community and volunteer, but they want to not waste their time and they want to get something out of it, right?
And I did ask a very similar question of a current CAPS member, and the response that I got was that their perception is that CAPS members are looking for direction from the town council on what our vision is for the committee. So it's a little bit of a chicken and the egg.
And I think we're going to be approving work plans starting in January, so that's a good opportunity. The committee will submit that to you guys, and then you'll have the opportunity to see what they plan for 26 and give them feedback, which could help provide that direction and guidance.
Could we have staff come in here? Because I was a little surprised that this was on the agenda and no staff member for CAPS is here.
Well, Leslie might be on Zoom, I'm not sure.
No, yeah, but she's not in the room. It's JG and it's Michaela. And from what I'm understanding,
Well, it's really JG. Michaela's attended 2 meetings in the last year.
Being on the email thread, getting the email, you said both people had a problem with staff. Only one person, to my knowledge, resigned because of staff issues. The other person resigned because they said that they had a work issue, and that was what staff wanted. So there's a communication issue there, and either staff has it or the people have it, but somebody is not getting along. And from conversations I've had with people on CAPS, this is much more of an issue than staff. This is an issue amongst the members of which direction they want CAPS to go in. There's the monumental, the put up statues, and there's the people that want it to return to community-based art. That's for them to figure out and solve. That's not something we can solve. But I think before we talk about what staff is doing or not doing, they should be here talking with their end of the story, providing their perspective, and not just us taking whatever anecdotes we're hearing and moving and making some sort of proclamation based on that. Because that was one of the biggest things on the survey, staff thinking that we throw them under the bus. And that's something that we need to be very mindful of when we talk, when they're not here about some issue that they're involved in.
Jason, the point you brought up about the differences of opinion within the committee. I'm not an artist. I couldn't tell good art from bad art. I guess art is all about perception. So I really am going to rely on the CAPS committee to bring a recommendation forward of we should do this mural or this statue or this whatever thing that's going to enhance the experience.
Yeah, that's their community, they decide.
To the, to our community, and so I don't know that it has to be sculpture or murals or all of it. It's what's the best piece of art for whatever the space is, right?
And I'm not saying that we make it. That's
No, I'm saying that
I don't want to tell them how to run their thing.
Right,
That's their thing.
this is a long-winded way of saying, I agree with you, let them kind of figure that out and bring that recommendation to the council for discussion.
Yeah, because they join CAPS because of passion, right? People love art, and it's not something that, if you don't understand art, I'm going to join CAPS because I have no clue. They're passionate about it, and I love the fact that we've got that type of community here in this town, because, art is kind of similarly aligned architecture for me, but I want them to figure out what they want to do, but I also want staff to be involved in this because I want to hear from them. Because if there's something going on the committee where people aren't getting along, then an honest conversation has to be had on that.
So we have an establishing resolution that we signed back in 2016 that created CAPS.
That was so long.
And it says CAPS is charged with the following duties:
It's 40 years ago.
to advise the Board of Trustees on the selection of art installations and artistic and cultural development within Superior. So to advise us on the selection of that stuff. To envision, create, and inspire active opportunities to engage in fine and cultural arts within Superior. To develop, energize, and activate public spaces that reflect the spirit, culture, and heritage of Superior. To cultivate opportunities to gather and create community in Superior. To assist in the preparation of applications for grants. Now we have a grant writer, so that doesn't really seem like that's something that they should
We
be
never
doing.
submitted anything in the last 10 years anyway.
And then to perform such other functions as directed by the board.
The one issue that came up that seems like maybe it's not solvable for this particular group because there's already like interpersonal like stuff going on, but the front loading of anybody coming onto CAPS, that this is about your artistic expression and how you want to contribute, but also within the framework of a government contract. And so at some point, like, I don't know how much that gets expressed early on to them, but that they're told ahead of time, yes, and like that is coupled with a process. And that process could feel restrictive and unpleasant and not fun and not artistic at all, but know that those two things have to go together for us to move forward with this. So I'm wondering if just managing some expectations up front for whoever is coming on next would be really helpful, because I don't know what happens when they come on and how it's expressed, what that relationship looks like. But from the friends that I do know that are artists, that's not fun for them and they don't want to talk about that stuff. But if they know that the agreement is like, I'm joining this, I'm coming onto this advisory committee, but in that agreement, I'm also agreeing to, at some point, my artistic expression ends and government contracts begin, and that there's a sharing there so that it doesn't pit whatever the staff's doing against the, like, those aren't good together, right? So, but if everybody knows that going in, I mean, I know she knows, but anybody coming on, if they understand that just might be a helpful place to put that so that the problem doesn't become a problem. But I don't know how that fixes the dynamics of what's happening now. But that should definitely be explicitly like explained to someone coming into it, that at some point they're going to release their baby and that it's going to get all of its vaccinations, whether they like it or not. And,
well, I know Michaela's working on a training for the committees. We've done them in the past for 2026, so I'm hoping that'll help.
Is there like a expectation for when that will start happening, or?
Actually,
whenever it is fine. I just have heard it.
They talked about pivoting rather than bringing all the committees in on a certain date, is maybe taking the first part of a committee meeting for that committee and give them the training during their committee meeting.
I think that's helpful because the generic training is generic, right? The OSAC rep, to your point, is very different than the CAPS rep, than the ACES or Historical Commission in terms of what they do, what they understand, what they want to do. Especially when it gets into The charters for some of these are very different.
Meet them where they are.
And that would be with like the whole committee or just the new people?
The whole.
That's helpful, I
Yeah.
think, because then that gets everybody in alignment with what's going on, but also brings the historical knowledge. I'd hate to go back after this and just be like, you tell us, because they're asking us to tell them.
They are.
And we've already had this conversation, we've had this conversation multiple times
Yes.
about this particular committee before, and Drew's been very diplomatic about asking us, and we have been very, and I just don't want to do that to them again.
Well, I mean, in some ways, it goes back to the charter, and yes, the charter is going to be subject to interpretation, which,
It said envision and create, all these like words that
Well,
have
the
no
first one's easy, right?
boundary.
To advise the board on the selection of art installations, like, that's clear as day. But the second one, to develop, energize, and activate, to envision, create, and inspire active opportunities to engage in fine and cultural arts. I mean,
What does that mean?
That can mean a million different
I did
things,
not know
so.
that.
To develop, energize, and activate public spaces.
I'm probably the closest
That
thing to
also.
an artist on this thing, and I have no idea what that means.
Well, I mean, it means everything.
Yeah.
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 That might be
means-
I
problematic.
think he's trying not to be too limiting, and because artists are creative people, and they're going to think about something that none of us have ever thought of before, and I don't think we want to close off that opportunity.
It's a choose your own adventure.
Right, choose your own adventure.
Yeah.
But come along with the government.
No.
That's the
To a certain
container,
extent. To a certain
right? Like
extent.
choose your own adventure in the container of the government, right?
To
Like
a
that's
certain
what it
extent,
is.
Yeah.
So you're the lead on CAPS, right?
Yeah, fix it, Neil. You got it.
You have any preliminary thoughts on fixes?
I don't. I mean, and I think it's because like Drew's email is the exact reason of why this is not. It's like the Gordian knot, the Ouroboros and the snake eating itself. Like there's just no end to this thing because it's one of the coolest committees we have. And the fact that we have not been able to solve this in like the last 10 years since it was formed tells you a lot about like there's maybe not a right answer and that the answer is going to keep evolving. I'd love to hear from staff. I mean, to Jason's point, kind of where they think the guardrails could be to kind of allow for a little more freedom of movement for CAPS, because I think as the board in our dinner throws things at CAPS, they go off and solve this, and the transition, the handoff between the members who have the contacts and what staff picks up to go do is broken, right? And that's part of, I think is, the face counter. Like if staff's going off and doing something, to your point, meeting with the chair, coordinating with the committee on these are the things that we might go do so that there's better lines of communication on who's doing what. But I think we need to hear from staff on what they think the guardrails are.
Neil, can I ask you a question? And this is just, do you think CAPS is too big?
Well, I mean, all our committees have there's only 6 people on CAPS right now. Like we're at risk of not having quorum.
Yeah.
So the last thing I would suggest is that it's too big.
Okay. By that question, I meant, do you think just by their mission, like Mark just read, there's a lot to interpret from that? And they do have the biggest budget by far and away of any other advisory committee. Do you think, and I'm not making a suggestion, do you think CAPS would be better served if it was compartmentalized into different sections of what the arts want to do so that there's more meaningful benefit for the people that do come in with their artistic creativity? They think they're still artists, but now they're shackled by the governmental.
Yeah, I think I see where you're going. It's a
Subcommittees?
Yeah, I mean, the issue with subcommittees is then, who's a staff member covering all the subcommittees and then so on and so forth. I mean, what's been great about CAPS is it sort of ebbs and flows with the committees. Like, to Mark's point, when CAPS was formed, it was all about community art.
Yeah.
Then it was about finding some cool sculptures. And then right now, they're doing a knockout job on murals. So, and then there's the Coyote Hawk. So everything can get mixed in. And what CAPS does great is that it doesn't have to be all 9 members that want to do one type of art, because that would get colossally boring. If all the board is doing is approving one type of art, this is going to be a very boring community very quickly.
Sure.
And then with 9 members, 6 members right now, we're getting a very broad view of that. Got a couple members that love hosting the community events at the community center, which people sign up for, don't show up for, so it's a different problem. The glass blowing and making the totems and things like that. They love doing that. They're not huge. They're not, and this is just like with any, group you're going to have some people that really like some things and some people like some other things. And I think to have it be just a group of only liking one things, it'll get very boring very quickly. And then we won't attract the next round of people that want to be there.
Is there gonna be like crossover with Sundance?
Well, so yes, and I think that's actually helpful because they've been talking, and we're going to talk about their work plan. I mean, they've been talking a lot about Sundance, and they're the reason why that last item was on here is how are we going to pay for the things? Like if they go off and do some programming as sort of, sort of set the stage for movie awareness and get, 3 movies to be shown as part of the programming for 2026, where they're going to get shown. And I think it's a great pivot for CAPS to go from, we were doing physical art, now we're doing art mediums. Yeah, I think that because again, it's playing to some of the strengths. Like when we asked on the board, no one on this board or on staff has been to CAPS, has been to the Sundance. 2 out of the 6 members of CAPS have been to the exact
multiple times.
Right, exactly. Like one goes on a regular basis, knows all these things, and everybody there, right? Like that tells you a lot about the core competency that they have that we don't, and how do we leverage that, to help us going forward. So yeah, simple question. I don't know.
Well, I think a starting point should be, let's hear from staff about their experiences working with CAPS and what's working and what's not working, where there's room for improvement. And specifically, if there are any kind of like structural changes that staff would suggest to make it more efficient for staff, more enjoyable for the CAPS volunteers. Just how do we make this relationship work in a collaborative way on a going forward basis? And if there's anything that we need to do to kind of revise the charter, we can do that.
Yeah.
But let's just hear from staff,
Okay.
so we can kind of like understand kind of what the lay of the land is, and then when we meet with CAPS and also as they're working on the work plan, you can let them know that we've asked staff to kind of get back to us and talk about the relationship between the two and how we can kind of fix things and improve the process. All right? Does that work?
Yeah, I think I should stress, I mean, everybody's super valuable, like staff, JG's amazing, the 6 staff members we have at CAPS are amazing right now. I don't want to lose a single person, which is why I wanted this on here. Michaela's been helping a lot, so I think there's a lot of hugely positive things that we can do out of this, from this committee. And I want to continue that on a go-forward basis.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything is when it really comes down to it is about like managing expectations and emphasizing communication. And like there should be no expectation that an advisory committee made of volunteers that meets once a month would be able to put together like a summer concert series, right? Like that's the sort of thing that like takes so much time and like effort, and that's why we've got paid staff to do that work. But like that advisory committee may have some like input on things to make that event better. So like it should be encouraged and used and relied on and respected through the process and informed. So they can both kind of do their jobs as well as they can. So all right. We're done with that topic. Other items? Anybody? All right.
Adjourned?
We're adjourned. See you guys next Monday.
Next year.
Next.
Oh, wait, no.
Next Monday.
Oh, you can't wait.